Gotta get your morning coffee, man. I mean, I don't like to drink that much coffee, but during exam season, I'm just hooked. But then I go on a little, I go on cold turkey and stop drinking it for a long while, so, kind of like reduce the tolerance. Gotta calm down, man. I'm on camera, I'm feeling a bit excited. Put smaller words. Hits the spot. Alright, so today, actually I should already put my white coat. Wait up, I'm gonna put it right now. It's gonna look extra professional, like the last year medical student that I am. Man, time flies. I still don't feel ready, it's like, I still got exams to do, but it is what it is. Okay. Alright, how do I look? Good? Maybe a stethoscope? Yeah, probably. Anyway, so today I am just gonna talk about medicine stuff, whatever comes to my head, and I'm gonna try and show you how kind of like how the mindset is in this field, right? At least as a student, as a finishing student. So I'm just gonna start with one or two topics and show you how you can bind things together, because carryover and correlations are what matter, right? So you want to always we always want to make associations between topics. It's a system, the whole body. It's a whole system. So you should always think holistically. I will show you what I mean. Anyways, so I'm gonna get a bit more coffee. Finish it, I won't let finish it. My water too. Let's get this show on a roll. First, I gotta clean that up. All right, so let's have a nice and clean blackboard. I'm sorry if my voice is all boxy and stuff. I'm in a small room, and I'm a small, can't even call me a YouTuber, I'm just a student, so this is not a professional video, guys. Sorry for the sound quality. Can I do it? Mine's too expensive, it's like that, y'all. But hopefully you can bear with me, or probably by now I already skipped this video. Went on for it. Next hotshot, that student who is trying, maybe to teach, or maybe not, doesn't even know what the hell he's doing, but hey, trying to do what matters. No matter what the means are. Okie dokie, I only have 2 pieces of white chalk. I like to make my notes colorful if you guys see my past vids, but it's okay. It's a challenge. We're gonna use white chalk only. All right, let's get to it. So let's start with a disease. I saw a case of IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. Let's start with gastro. Okay, let's start with that. So what is IBD? So we know IBD, it's an inflammatory bowel disease, right? Inflammatory bowel disease. And you know what? Disease, DX. Treatment, TX. That's not gonna work. Let's keep DX for diagnosis, TX for treatment, symptoms, let's put an SX. So this is gonna stay disease. Sorry for confusion. All right, inflammatory bowel disease. What does this mean? It means that it's, in this case, IBD, there's many inflammatory bowel diseases, so we'll give. So the thing about IBD is that it's relapsing and remitting, right? So it comes and goes, but it kind of never goes away. I mean, very few select cases, but again, there's a difference. There's a slight difference. I'm gonna get to it so you understand. So IBD, the main two flavors of it are what we call good old ulcerative colitis. So not good old. It's not good. It's not a joke, guys. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, right? So we got these two bad boys right here. These are two of the most famous types of gastric conditions you will come up to in your gastro exam. These are two types of IBD, the chief types, and pretty much there are distinct differences between how these two show up clinically, right? So when it comes to ulcerative colitis, right off the bat, we have to say that it presents, it's a partial thickness inflammatory disease. So partial, right? Whereas Crohn's, it's transmural. What does that mean? So it's transmural, it's the whole wall. So we're talking mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, all that stuff. Whereas this is probably going to be just mucosa, submucosa. And actually, it's funny, not funny, but compared to this, it's relatively. Okay, I'm bad at it. I'm sorry, guys. That's my first time. It's my first time. All right, I'm just finishing up med school, almost done with med school. Teaching is something I gotta practice. But bear with me. All right. So partial. What do we see in the partial? It's really cool. It's really interesting. So we get these pseudo polyps, right? Right. So I should have done this. So you get these pseudo polyps because we're only affecting the mucosa submucosa. And I don't remember if transmural also had this phenomenon, but that's something cool to see histologically speaking. But going back, one of the main things that differentiate the two is where they affect, right? So about 30-40% of cases of ulcerative colitis. Let me just draw a nice colon first, because colitis is usually, colitis just as the name entails, it's just a colon. Whereas Crohn's, it's the whole, small and large intestine. It's like the whole gastric apparatus. Even your esophagus and your tongue can be affected with Crohn's. Whereas with colitis, ulcerative colitis, you get these continuous, not patchy, not discontinuous like in Crohn's, continuous inflammatory adversities. I don't know. So here we got a really badly drawn colon, right? It's gonna be all square, guys. I'm a good artist. I can draw. It's just drawing and talking and not premeditating on this. You gotta plan. That's why you plan things out. I guess that's why teachers plan things out before they teach. I'm just going off of one. I'm just talking. Okay, you guys can skip away. This is just a med student talking random medical things out of the top of his head. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, okay? And by the way, I'm not a doctor yet, so this is not medical advice. Disclaimer. All right. So here we got boom, boom. Okay. So ascending, transverse, descending colon, sigmoid area, rectal area, subproctoid area, ileocecal area. So this is where the small intestine, the ileum, and the cecum come together to get this ileocecal valve. And actually, in ulcerative colitis, right? About 30 to 40% of ulcerative colitis cases are in this area, believe it or not, the ileocecal area, right? And I'm sorry, no. Sorry, I gotta cut that out, man. I messed that one up. No. That's not ulcerative colitis. My bad. That was actually Crohn's. That's Crohn's, alright? Crohn's disease, right? Ulcerative colitis, the majority is actually in this area. The proctal area, right? The sigmoid and the rectum area. And the thing about ulcerative colitis, we have, it's, again, 30 to 40%, if I remember correctly, happen in this area. And with ulcerative colitis, we have this 30 to 40% happening in the proctal area, so rectum and sigmoid column, right? And we have this happening. And many times, because it's going from distal, this is a distal area, it's the first point, right? It can go from distal to proximal. So you can have a situation, in 20% of cases actually, in which you have an extensive colitis, right? So it starts here, right? It can start off here, and then just spread, right? That's 20% of cases. With ulcerative colitis, we have this proctal area being affected. Whereas with Crohn's disease, as I said, it's ileocecal a lot of the times, but it could be everywhere with Crohn's. With Crohn's, it's tricky. Like here, with ulcerative colitis, we have this it's continuous. This is ulcerative colitis. It's one continuous bowel, right? And it's in the large bowel. With Crohn's, then the picture would look something more like this. You see what I'm doing? It's patchy. Here yes, here no. Here yes, here no. Here yes, here no. So that's Crohn's, right? This is Crohn's right here. And as I said, Crohn's affects the ileocecal valve, but really it can affect everywhere in the colon, in patches of Crohn's disease. You also not only see it in the colon, as I said, you see it in the small intestine, whereas with ulcerative colitis, it's usually distal to proximal, and it looks something like this. So we have a picture, right, of the locations. Let's talk about more differences between the two. So let me put this here. Okay. So, all right. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. What are some differences? So with Crohn's, they're about the same in frequency. I think Crohn's is slightly more common, if I'm not mistaken. The age ranges, I believe, are 15 to 40 years old for both. But one interesting fact is that when it comes to smoking, for ulcerative colitis, sorry about that, for ulcerative colitis, it's, some research says that it's protective. Appendectomies and smoking are protective factors for ulcerative colitis, which is rather odd. But for Crohn's, it's the other way around. They're worse. The reactive oxygen species that come from the cigarettes over time, like any other processes that gets derailed by smoking, Crohn's also going to be affected. It's going to be derailed, then it's going to have a negative impact. So that's another difference. So here's a cigarette and appendectomy, right? And it's good for ulcerative colitis, but for Crohn's, we want to limit this cigarette, right? What else? Okay. So how do we diagnose the two, right? I mean, actually, before jumping into that, so we said that Crohn's, it's patchy, which means this continuous, and ulcerative colitis is continuous, right? Okay, cool. So for diagnosis, of course, biopsies are good. So we just get, if it's the colon, we can use an endoscope. There's a little something that looks like this. It comes here, and boom, and we see, what's going on. Because, we're talking colon, so we're talking, large intestine. With Crohn's, since we're also talking upper areas, upper GI, then the same thing applies, but you can do it bottom, and you also have to do it upwards. So from the mouth, you get the endoscope, and you watch what's going on, and you get a specimen, right? You look in what's up, you see there's the insulting factor. You're like, well, this is not supposed to be there. So what happens is you biopsy, you take a piece of that. Okay, cool. So you take a piece of that and you bring it to the histology lab. What does that look like? So pretty much, as we said before, with Crohn's, you're going to see transmural inflammation, the biopsy piece. Ulcerative colitis, you're going to see partial. So you are going to see, in your stain, you're going to see these differences, and you can already kind of tell. And ulcerative colitis, it's a very, even on the endoscope, you will just see in ulcerative colitis these inflamed ulcerative lesions, right? Very reddened lesions. Whereas also in Crohn's, you see these, they call them cobblestone appearing lesions. I guess you guys know what cobblestones are, but if you ever walk in old European cities, like in their city centers, you can usually see these cobblestones. This is like these roads or these streets which have these stone by stone, bubbly, old, very nice stone appearance. So those are cobblestones, and you can research cobblestone streets on Google, and you will understand. That's why they call them, because it looks very similar to the Crohn's specimen when you see it. So diagnosis, we said endoscope plus biopsy, right? And also symptoms, right? So let's think about that. When you have ulcerative colitis, for example, right? You got ulcerating lesions in this colon. What kind of symptoms are you going to see? Well, lower GI bleeds comes in right away. I mean, in general, any type of colitis is a big reason for lower GI bleeds. But, and now I'm going to kind of shift topics, the differential, and then go back to these. But when you're talking colitis, one of the main symptoms is lower GI bleeds. Okay, and we're talking hematochezia and things like that. We're not really talking black, right? We're not talking melena, because these are not upper GI. Right now, for ulcerative colitis, we're just focusing, and then we're going to go back to this, but for this, we're focusing on the blood. So if it's going to be like, let's say in the rectum, the point of major ulceration, it's going to be more bright red. The blood that comes is going to be more bright because it's close. So imagine if you have a piece of a bleeding point here, right? And you have feces, right, that have to be expelled. Since it's so close to the rectal area, the blood is fresh and it's painting over that feces. I'm sorry for the analogy, but I want to get the point across. It's painting over it, and it's right. So it's really deep red. I mean, even if you get a proctoscope or put the finger on it, the blood will be brighter. And that could also be a differential for other things in the rectal area, cancers or hemorrhoids, many things. So, well, hemorrhoids. Anyways, we'll get to that. Whereas if it's somewhere here or here, it's still going to be red, but not as bright as per se here, right? But inflammation, because ulcerative colitis is an inflammatory disease, so it's not the only source of lower GI bleeding, and it's not the only complication of ulcerative colitis. But for the sake of argument, we'll just focus on this complication, and maybe I'll try to expand more complications. But ulcerative colitis, we're saying lower GI bleeding, right, is one typical symptom, right? But you can have many symptoms and complications because, especially with ulcerative colitis, you can have complications such as toxic megacolon, especially with Clostridium difficile infection, co-infection. It just expands. And we'll get to it. You can have hemorrhage. You can have rupture of the bowel over time because it gets, think about it, it gets inflamed for so long, the walls get weaker and weaker and weaker until rupture, right? So, but those are complications. Let's just focus on the chief symptom and the differential. So differential is going to be DDX differential. Like DX was just, diagnosis, DDX differential. So guys, I'm sorry for the key terms, but if I want to write all this out, it's a lack of space, right? So, okay. So, when it comes to lower GI bleeds, which accounts for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 30 to 50% of all problems with lower GI bleeding in general. Like, there's many types of causes to lower GI bleeds. Could be a cancer, could be a neoplasm, could be a polyp, could be a hemorrhoid. Hemorrhoids are actually the most common, so I think 50 is a bit of a stretch. Let's say 30, 40, the rest is hemorrhoids, or maybe even 20, 30. Again, guys, the numbers don't matter. We want to kind of put in the theory, right? Don't worry about the numbers. You can double check those on Google. Those are just factoids. We don't care about facts. We care about understanding. That's the only thing artificial intelligence cannot take over for now. Let's hope. You want to be out of a job, man. Even this is not going to help at some point, man. Damn. All right. So the DDX. So we got, as we said, inflammatory colitis. Okay. Then what else? Ischemic, right? Ischemic. I'm sorry, I'm just left-handed, so I suck at writing in general. It's always been a problem. And imagine being a doctor and a left-handed. Your handwriting is even going to be worse. The doctors don't know how to write. So, anyways, colitis. And let's think of another one. Infectious, right? Infectious colitis. Okay, so here I got you a 1, a 2, and 3 important differentials, guys, for lower GI bleeds, colitis. Not ulcerative, just colitis in general. Because ulcerative is our number 1. It's inflammatory colitis, and we covered a bit of it, right? A bit of it. We'll get back to it later. And I have to probably erase a lot of stuff. Ischemic, man. So when we say ischemic colitis, what are we talking about? We're talking about the watershed areas. What are watershed areas? Well, they're usually around here in the descending and part of the colon. The descending, I think also the splenic flexure, if I remember correctly. Well, these are watershed areas. What does watershed mean? It means that they are areas which there's poor collaterals. So if something goes wrong, there's not going to be enough collateral supply also, and they're just more susceptible to not receiving blood at some point and become ischemic. So less oxygen, less ATP production, and less energy, and they just die off, right? So these are our watershed areas. So you can have ischemic colitis. So that's one, differential right here. It's a mimic, right? It could be a mimic, a great mimic of inflammatory bowel disease, of ulcerative colitis specifically. But hey, it could also be Crohn's. I mean, Crohn's can be anywhere here, guys. So IBD is the most proper one for these differentials, really. Ulcerative colitis usually, as I said, is in the proctal area, right? And it can go distal, proximal, and continuous, but there's no rule. These things can go everywhere. All right, so infectious colitis, that's the third differential. Off the top of my head, let's talk about some infectious diseases that could mimic GI bleeds. Not the inflammation, guys. We're just talking bleeding right now. Then we're going to go back to the more inflammatory problems. Campylobacter, E. coli 157, for example, EO 157, Salmonella, Shigella. I think Shigella, it's good to know. I mean, because when you have a pediatric case, you gotta watch out. You gotta treat it quick because Shigella can cause seizures in the pediatric demographics. So that's also one thing. And yeah, these are just some off the top of my head of infectious colitis causes. So these are differentials for lower GI bleeds when it comes to this particular scenario. When it comes to differential colitis, right? Colitis. Whereas differential non-colitis, as we said, polyps, just GI. I mean, neoplasms, polyps are technical neoplasm, then they become, for example, GI cancers, colon cancer. You're going to have first polyps, then adenomas, then eventually they go up into carcinomas, right? So I think that can see by that one. So we got polyps. And one more. Getting tired already, man. Teaching is hard, bro. Hemorrhoids. Right? So there's many others, smaller ones. Angiosplasias, but I'm not gonna write that down. All right, so we have lower GI bleeds covered, but these are only one of the things, right, of ulcerative colitis. The main things, right? Then you're gonna have pain, you're gonna have bloating, you can have many factors, or you can be asymptomatic. I mean, there's many ways that it could show up, but the same with Crohn's, right? Inflammatory, it's an inflammation. And actually, these are chronic, right? So let's switch it up a bit. Let's jump into hematology for a bit. How would the blood work look, right? Of course, I mean, for these two, we're probably gonna have increased CRP, right? Because we're talking inflammation, right? And we know it, okay, that's cool, but let's talk about anemias, right? Because, I mean, at some point, you're going to be losing blood, either because you're literally losing blood, or not even hemorrhage, man, just over time, right? Chronic blood loss. But if you have a Crohn's, then you're going to have disrupted cells. It's transmural, so if it's a lot, it might be causative for lack of absorption of many nutrients, not only iron, but also B12 and folate, calcium, right? But let's focus on Crohn's causing less iron absorption, Fe, right? And hematologically speaking, now our gastro, we see we're associating, right? Now we went from gastro to hematology. Gotta keep associating, then going back to gastro. Then going to neurology. You always gotta associate all the topics. You gotta be holistic, guys. You gotta be holistic. So we have decreased Fe. What does that entail? Over time, that's gonna be causative for anemia, right? Of iron deficiency. So what does that mean? When we have less iron, because let's review, okay? Red blood cells, erythrocytes. What's their composition? So we have the proporphyrin, which binds to the iron, right? We got that. We got the globins, we got them all together. We got the RBC, iron is crucial. Just gonna keep it short. So, what happens in the case of low iron for a long time? We can have microcytic anemia. Not always, could be normocytic. But microcytic anemia, so less than 80 femtoliters, right? Less than 80 femtoliters. Low MCV, so microcorpuscular volume. And how does that look like on blood work? Well, initially, right, and initially we start as Fe anemia, right? So a blood work would be microcytic. What else is microcytic anemia? Anemia of chronic disease, right? And I'm going to get to that because, again, I'm not a professor, right? But it's just common sense. I mean, if you start with an iron deficiency anemia, over time, as the inflammation gets also worse, it's going to turn into, it's going to gear more towards an inflammation, an anemia of chronic disease, of chronic inflammation, right? But it's going to be back and forth between the two because also we're not absorbing iron, so it's really bad. It's kind of both, right? But let's kind of review, With low iron, our body wants more iron. So what's our body going to do? Well, it's our saturation, first of all, going to be lower because we use less iron. So wait, let me just clear this one up a bit, get myself more space. All right, so in anemia of iron deficiency, we're going to have a high total iron binding capacity. Why? Because we have less saturation, right? So 33% is our cutoff. For less than 33%, that's bad. So our TIBC is, of course, going to increase because now we're more receptive, our body's more receptive, we want to grab as much iron as possible, right? So TIBC is going to increase. And what else do we got? Well, our ferritin, what's going to happen to ferritin? Well, what is ferritin? It's just the iron stored in our liver, right? Well, our ferritin is going to decrease because now it's going to be released. We're going to have decreased ferritin, right? Because there's no point storing it anymore when our body's lacking this, right? So initially, again, there's always a gray zone. It could be a bit of both. It could be the other one. But it really depends on the case, case by case. This is not set in stone. Okay, like anything in medicine. Medicine is an art. It's an incomplete science, but a beautiful science. And that's why Feynman hated it, man. Feynman hated doctors. He was an engineering type. I mean, he was a physicist. They got a mechanical point of view, Everything is perfect, it's calculated. And, hey, I respect that, but our body is just too complex, It's still an art for now. Maybe AI will make it into it will open all the answers for us. I don't know. That's a different topic. Iron deficiency anemia. Anemia of chronic disease. So we have high inflammatory condition of inflammation. So it's not that iron is this causative for this, right? It's not like it's low in the system because there's no input of it. I mean, in this case, for sure, if we have an absorbed problem, yes, but in general, I'm just saying, it's not that. In inflammatory anemia of chronic disease, over time, our body is like, okay, because what does inflammation mean? It means we have an autoimmune disease, perhaps, a neoplasm, an infection, bacterial, viral. So our body's like, okay, these pathogens, these bacteria, or this neoplasm, they want as many resources as possible to grow at the expense of our bodies, right? So we gotta have iron. The body's smart. So it hides iron, and where do you hide it? Where do you hide iron? In the liver, right? You store as ferritin. You try to not let those pathogens or those intruders and those invaders get at the iron to get those resources. It's like warfare. It's like strategy games. You guys played RTS, like you played Age of Empires? It's like Age of Empires. You don't want an enemy to grab your resources. You get that gold mine, you don't want them to grab the gold mine. They're going to have more cash. All right, so you don't want that. So our body doesn't want that. So you decrease the iron amount in the bloodstream, you put it into the liver. So what happens to ferritin? Now we have higher amounts of ferritin, obviously, right? What about our TIBC? If we don't want, if we want to keep it stored and we want less iron as possible in the bloodstream so that the bacteria or the neoplasm can grow with it, then also TIBC would be lower, right? Total iron binding capacity. But of course, it's an anemia, right? It's an anemia chronic disease, so saturation is also low. And iron is also going to be low, right? That's the definition of anemia. Anemia, right? So these are two types and they can overlap, right? Although I think most texts would probably want you to focus on iron deficiency anemia when it comes to GI inflammation or to autoimmune diseases or celiac disease, things like that, because there's no absorption, because when the cells are destroyed, what can they absorb? Or what can they absorb? The cells are just destroyed. So, or almost destroyed, or partially, or fully, primarily, right? Kaput. That's getting messy. All right, so we talked about gastro. We kind of went into hematology. So we talk diagnosis, endoscope, biopsy. I think for Crohn's you can also do imaging like CT and whatnot. Could be helpful to kind of see the transmural, how much thickness is involved. And you're going to have increased CRP and so inflammation indicator, ESR, all that stuff, all that good stuff. Of course, you want a complete blood count to check for the anemia, complete blood count, and this is cheap, and it gives you a lot of information. Blood counts, complete blood counts are great. You're gonna see the erythrocytes, you're gonna see the leukocytes, you're gonna see all the myeloid and lymphoid lineage cells. Not that's a bone marrow transplant. That's different. But just the cells that content, so neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils. That's what I meant, guys. So CBCs are great. They give you a nice picture of what's going on, and then you can also do lab work to see if there's any coexisting infection. Toxin column. You want to see CDPCO in the stool, for example, stool sample. You want to do differential, so you want to check for E. coli, for example. You want to check for Campylobacter. A lot of stuff. So you get stool samples, you get CDC. You get differences between iron. Okay, all right. So we kind of got into. We got diagnoses, we got differentials, we got the locations of them. Usually Caucasians, I think, are involved, if I'm correct, European, white. And we said ages 15 to 40, smoking, protective, non-protective, Crohn's. Let's jump to pathophysiology maybe just a little bit. It's just a little bit, kind of, get it. So, really, etiology is rather obscure. It's like, we don't really know what happens, we still haven't figured it out. Maybe AI will help kind of solve stuff. All right. But for now, we kind of don't know. It's multifactorial, as most things. So with IBD, in general, there's a lot of research going on into the gut, into the microbiota as a causative effect. So if you can imagine, actually let's blow this one up. So you got a colon, right? Okay, you got a colon. So let's blow it up. Boom. So what this right here, this piece right here, I'm gonna blow it up, right? Boom. All right, you got a bunch of cells, right? I feel this all in just a cell, right? and it's in the GI, right? So we have, over time, these are useless because they're so inflamed and dying and whatnot. But why does this happen pathophysiologically? What started this, right? So one theory is it could be that the M cells, right? And again, they're actually not here, they're in the small intestine. I mean, they're also, I'm getting tired. All right, so M cells, there's going to be translocations occurring between the microbes and M cells and whatnot, just to keep it short. And what happens, this causes inflammatory cytokines, or cytokines. And what are the major ones? So, off the top of my head, tumor necrotic factor alpha, interleukin 1, interleukin 6. Tumor necrotic factor alpha is a big one though, because TNF alpha, right, as the name suggests, and necrotic factor, necrosis, death of cells. It causes death of cells, but it causes death of cells in a lot of manners. So it will kill off the cells involved. It will, it will kill off the PANF cells. So if you have no PANF cells, it's harder for the gut immunity, for colon immunity. It will, cause a lot of destruction, will activate a lot of factors, inflammation, eventually will lead to fibrotic changes perhaps. Although that's another cytokine, to be honest, Jeff. Growth factor. And yeah, over time, TNF, IL-1, but tumor necrotic factor alpha is the main inflammatory destroyer, and that's why actually the therapy is very geared towards combating TNF alpha. But before we jump into that, so we talk microbiota, right? That's microbiota, so that's a big one. So if we want to do therapy, right, for both, but let's focus on ulcerative colitis. How do we treat it? So we have something that has to come here, right? And usually we have they call a 5A acid, right? It comes here, and your gut bacteria will activate the 5A acid. And that's a first step process. Over time, if you see it's not working out, well, you got your good old corticosteroids, right? So that's the next step. You want to limit steroids as much as possible, obviously, for immunity purposes and whatnot, but so treatment, TX for treatment, steroids, right? Corticosteroids, and if the corticosteroids are still not doing the job that you want, right, then you advance, right, and you go to TNF alpha inhibitors, right? And bro, if that is not working, we gotta, there's only one cure left, and I know you guys are guessing it. I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring this, right? Right? You don't cut that. you do a hemicolectomy, or if it's bad enough, you do a full colectomy. You remove the whole colon. Yeah, that's right. I did it, guys. I haven't done it like in real life. I'm just 60 here, guys. Didn't get my medical degree yet. Just half a year, but we're almost there. I don't know if I'm a surgeon though. That's tough. Got baby hands. I can't. So you do a hemicolectomy or you do a full colectomy, remove the colon, and it's curative, man. For ulcerative colitis, many times it's curative. It's just a colon. It's life. I mean, life-wise, your quality of life is not going to be as great. You're gonna have a J pouch or a colostomy bag, and it's difficult. It's difficult. But it's still better than Crohn's, because with Crohn's, even if you remove the whole colon, well, you might just have it, you're going to remove your esophagus, for example. It's difficult. It's you have better prognosis with ulcerative colitis in the sense that you have curative measures. For Crohn's, you just, you do the steroids, you do antibiotics, you do acid, TNF alpha modulators. That's one way to go about treating it. Yeah. This has become a big mess. So we kind of got the inflammatory part, but I think we should, since we're in it, let's go with what was your differential? Is that inflammatory colitis, ischemic colitis, infectious colitis, but non-colitis, so polyps, right? That's a big one, guys. That's very pertinent to today's society. You have younger people getting GI cancers, guys. So I think let's shift to that. So what are polyps? Well, these are precancerous, right? So they're little, everybody's polyps, especially as you grow older, you're just gonna get more and more, especially after age 50, you know? So it's not that big of a deal, but it could become a big deal. You know, let's say if you have FAP or HNCC, Lynch disease, I don't know if anyways, then you have a higher chance of these polyps developing into adenomas, right, which are precancers. Adenomas, right? And how do these adenomas develop from polyps? Well, this is genetics now. We went from gastro to hematology, now we're going to genetics. Holistic, guys. Whew. I need more coffee, man. It's tiring standing up for so long, guys. It's a lot of energy. Damn. All right. All right, man. I'm gonna drink some water before getting into this. Actually, no, I'm gonna get to this a little bit and give you a sneak preview. So, I don't know, how does this happen? Well, polyps. You know what? How do polyps happen? Actually, let's go to the roots, right? Well, why do we develop these things? Okay, so in the colon, right? Let's focus on colon polyps for now. And these are actually one of the main reasons of lower GI pains. So in the colon, we have a situation where these, what is a polyp? Polyp is something like this. It's an outpatient, right? It's like in the colon, and then out, okay, that's huge, but you get, we go back to the colon, you're gonna have many polyps. Kind of look like the reticular outpouching, to be honest. So that's the different. Polyps are more in, but they can be out, they can be poof, so they can be anywhere. That's aside from the point. Polyps. What's up with polyps? Well, okay. So if you guys recall genetics, right? Let's just keep it basic, right? Look at this bad boy. Chromosome, right? What happens with chromosome? If you break it apart, you see a lot of these. Yeah, you guys know what they are. Histones. And what's inside the histones? Oh yeah. Yeah, baby. It's good old DNA. I'm gonna write it. Okay, right? All about histone DNA. So we're just trying to, at a micro level, just compact everything, because how it's gonna all fit if you don't compact it. Now, what happens is, in the DNA also, we have, to keep it simple, this is really raw, okay? We have promoter regions and non-promoter regions, right? So, in a utopia, in a perfect world, we just said that, okay, in a perfect world, these are what you want, and these are not what you want to activate, right? I mean, methylation and acetylation, guys, remember those concepts? So, you want to acetylate, you want to activate, you want to increase access of promoter regions, and you want to decrease access, so you want to methylate non-promoter regions, right? Usually. And of course, there's also overlap, and sometimes it's inverse, but the body knows what it's doing. When the body doesn't know what it's doing, when there's a carcinogen, right? There's many risk factors for colon cancer. A carcinogen such as, okay. Oh man, that hurts, bro. You gotta do what you're gonna. Sometimes sacrifice a few concepts to get to the next concepts. I mean, hopefully you guys took a screenshot of that and remembered, or maybe you don't even care. Maybe I'm just doing this for no reason. Maybe I'm just reviewing for my exam. Maybe I'll just keep it that way. Alright, so DNA promoter, non-promoter. Okay, alright, I see. So DNA promoter, non-promoter. Risk factors that cause this whole system to go poof, right? So you can have factors you can control, such as diet, so the fiber, they say too much red meat, too many fats, advanced age, over 50, that's not really advanced, but you know what I mean, you get the point. Male sex, that's actually a fact. These are factors you can't control. This is a factor you can control, but you can't control your age, and oh man, actually, did I just go there? I'm sorry guys, I don't want to, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, guys. I mean, I don't want to get into whole gender topics. I'm very ignorant about that stuff. I'm just put my hands up. All right, just don't shoot me, guys. Being politically correct is something I can't relate, so you get the point. All right, you get the point. All right, so these are things you can't change. These are things you can change. Okay. And then there's genetics, man. You can do everything right. You can work out, not be sedentary, eat fiber, eat vegetables, and still drop dead because of stomach cancer. Life is like that. It's random, sporadic. So genes, right? So as we said, FAP, right? Tendency. So FAP is a big one, right? Familial adenopolypus, something. Who cares? I'm not a genetics student. That's student. We have so much to learn. So genes, such as this, right? How does it get to this? How does this get to this? How does this happen? This. So it's all connecting, right? So, boom, right? So we have the, I believe it was called HDAC. Anyways, it's the, what do you call it? It's an enzyme that regulates the promoter. I think it's called HDAC. The acetylase, forgot now. But it's a gene that regulates promoter and non-promoter regions to do their job. And if this enzyme is out of whack, you have a problem in which the non-promoter regions, the promoter regions are overly methylated, and the non-promoter regions are actually less methylated. So as we said before, if you have less methylation of non-promoter, means that you have more access to them, right? Right, the acetylase, right? acetylase, that's the enzyme. You have less acetylation of promoters and more methylation, so decreased access to promoter. And non-promoters, instead of, being methylated more, they're being methylated less. So you have a lot of useless genetic material. And over time, these could be problematic and they might cause overgrowth because now the checkpoint system within the cells, they can get destructed, right? You have the M phase, G2, S, and then G1, right? So you can have any of these checkpoints, poof, right? And when that happens, you want to do apoptosis, kill off the cell, you want to fix the cell. And over time, keep on doing that, and the body's like, yo, we don't have resources to get that, to keep this cycle, so you gotta pop. I know you guys are gonna kill me for this, but it's we're doing the holistic thing, we're generalizing so we can put it all together. No, it's not a specialist talking, no, it's not specialized. So polyps, eventually, this fiasco with the promoter and non-promoter happens. What's next? You got the FAP, you got the adenomas. Why? Because now we got a fiasco with the APC gene, right? Boom, less of this, more of this. And then adenomas, with the help of I think it was KRAS. But KRAS actually gets activated. More KRAS, more problems. Here, less ABC, less happiness. More KRAS, more problems, and then adenomas can become carcinomas. This actually sounds very wrong. I think I messed it up. Because to get the carcinomas, the P53, it is actually involved. And I think for adenomas, it was the KRAS, that was the A. And anyways, screw genetics. All right, you guys get the point. So we get pretty much from this polyp, which is huge. So we get from this, bad boy. Right? Polyp, adenoma, carcinoma. Okay. And what can this do? Right? What can, let's say you have a cancer in the bowel, you get, going back to the but let's, so we did gastro, we did hematology, we did a bit of genetics. I'm not good at genetics, guys, so don't quote me on this stuff. It's just for workflow. This whole thing is just me practicing my workflow, so I know how to holistically think my way through problems. This is all problem solving, guys. Memorizing doesn't do anything for you. You can just find stuff on Google these days. Memorization is obsolete. It's all about understanding. So, let's bring back our handy colon again. Again, you can have cancers everywhere, guys. I mean, I just like the colon because it's easy to draw. Okay, so boom, there you go. There you go. Yeah, buddy. Buddy. All right. Looks worse than the previous one, but okay. I can get the point across. So we said we had a polyp, but let's get a bit more grim. And let's bring back a huge neoplasm, right? A huge, right here, boom. Huge carcinoma, right? On the left side, because it's actually, since we're talking, let's be a more correct for epidemiology. Get the statistically correct location. So it's around this area, right? Again, you can have cancers here and here. 20% of the times, GI colon cancers, 20% of the time are here. Egocecal actually here, right? 20%, but the majority are in this area, especially the sigmoid, the majority. But in the egocecal area, it's usually asymptomatic until it's too late, until they're like, oh man, what's going on? And then 2 months later, you're done. Okay, no, it's not even like that, but it's Saturday morning, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not even gonna joke about it, but yeah, egocecal, right side of colon cancer, usually asymptomatic, and have anemia, of course, you bleed through it. Here, on the other hand, it's most of the cases of colon cancer are in the left side. Again, medical left. I don't know if you guys, some of the viewers are not doctors or medical students. So I know on the board this is the right, but if you look at me this way, as a person, this is my left, this is the left. All right. If there's any kids watching, which I don't know why you're watching this, but okay. So this right here is the area, right? And let's say, as I said before, we have a carcinoma that blocks this, right? That's crazy. There's a blockage. Maybe it's not as dramatic as this. Maybe it's not a full blockage, but even a minor blockage, right? And there's still some space maybe for a bit of stuff. Bit of feces to pass through. If you have a big amount of feces created that need to pass through, then at some point they're gonna clog, right? They're gonna clog. And what does clogging do? Aha. So think about that. You got a bunch of feces coming, and they can't go back, obviously. I mean, if it piles up, eventually they will, go back. But I mean, that's a bit too extreme. But let's say they get packed to this point, right? Even that is too extreme. Let's keep it, okay? Boom. They get clogged here, the feces, right? Because here there's a cancer blocking them. What's that going to look like? Well, now we have a situational shift. We have a problem, and let's bring this up a bit, in which you might have something that looks like this. Right? And there's not only feces coming down, guys, there's also air. So if air comes out, you're gonna have eventually expansion, right? And there's also microbes. So there's more gas being produced. So air and gas from the commensal bacteria that are living there, they're chill, man. But if something stays there too long, they're not going to be so chill, right? And that just causes expansion over time, right? And if you have too much expansion, What do you got around this? Come on, guys. Come on. Angiology. All right. We got vessels, right, to feed the structure, as any structure. But if these vessels get pressed on, right, because of this distension is pressing on them, what's going to happen? Well, first we're going to have effusion, and then we're also lowering the space in them, so they can't really supply. They're being constricted. It's like choking someone. Except this is not really choking, it's reverse, but it's, pushing on these vessels. There's effusion coming out. That could be caused for edema, or edema. Boy, I'm tired. Too many exams. Too many exams. No sleep. Anyways. So, and this could be loss of fluids because of that. It's one. And we have nerves, right? So what does that look like? Well, one is that we're losing fluids from our vessels, and our vessels are also dying. And two, our nerves are gonna be like, yo, there's something, it's not letting me through. What do we do? The brain's like, yo, bro, I got you, man. We're gonna expel it. So how are you gonna do it? We're just gonna try and diarrhea it out. It can't, barely can. So it's gonna also try and vomit it out. So now we have a situation where you got loss of fluids because of this, and also loss of fluids because of vomit. Right? Vomit. Even less fluids, and that's going to bring all sorts of problematics, right? You're going to have loss of sodium, loss of potassium, like everything. I mean, your electrolyte balance is not going to be so balanced anymore. It's going to be really disbalanced. And this loss of fluid from here, and especially from here, in a patient like this, it could be causative for shock, hypovolemic shock, right? And let's do some emergency math. So if you have a hypovolemic, volemic shock, right? Your blood pressure is going to be low, right? It's going to be low as hell, as heck. Or let's keep it child friendly. BP is going to be low. Your heart rate is going to try and compensate. Like, yo, there's no volume. We're going to pump up, right? So it's going to, right? Heart rate is going to be through the roof. Your SVR, your systemic vascular resistance, is going to be up. And what does that mean? You're going to have cold hands, but your peripheral vessels are going to try and compensate. Try and bring back blood as much as possible to the essential organs, right? So your peripherals, your fingers and your feet are not that essential, so it's going to be shunted. So that's why you're going to have cold feet and cold legs, because now blood is trying to get where it needs to get, right? And a set of other stuff, you're going to be pale, as I said, pale, cold, peripherally, this is very simplistic, but for the sake of time. All right, bros. Bros. Sound like an orthopedic surgeon. Bro. Yo, what's up, bro? How much you bench, bro? Dude, I'm orthopedic. I don't know how to bench and deadlift too. Oh, dang. I'm bad. Can't touch this thing. All right, so. But can we only have hypovolemic shock in this situation, guys? Think about it. Thought about it? Did you pause this video? Did you read it? No, you didn't. Because you're not even watching this, man. Probably talking to myself. Probably all my roommates are gonna think I'm a weirdo. Because I'm just explaining this when I could just be chilling. Just did a bunch of exams. I could be just chilling. Almost done with med school. I could be chilling. But instead I'm here being a nerd. Alright, boys. So you can also have septic shock. Why? Because think about it. So let's go back to this bad boy right here. We got obstruction. Gases of your commensal bacteria, gases are created because of the commensal bacteria. Air is coming in, bloating it up. Vessels are, being pressed upon. Water is going out. But when there is no, vessels are being restricted, so there's no blood flow to the cells, right? Let's blow this up, right? This, as anything, has cells. I mean, this is this is the space where all the constipation, all the pieces are, and these are your cells. And over time, these cells die because there's no blood flow going to these cells. All right, it's simple, guys. It's simple. So if these cells die, our body is going to peristalsis to try and inject this feces or this obstruction, which are cancer, right? And it's not successful because the cancer doesn't want to move. You're not going to feces out your cancer. I mean, it's crazy. Eventually, the peristalsis, the lack of blood flow, the distension is going to start killing them. And you're going to have more distension, less fluid, less peristalsis, more cell death because not enough fluid, not enough blood is coming to them. So when you don't have blood, what do you get? No oxygen. When you get no oxygen, you get no ATP production, right? So biochemistry, guys, is also important. Everything makes sense, guys. Even physics, chemistry, biology, everything has a purpose. I know at the beginning of med school, you'd be like, why am I learning physics? I want to be a doctor, not a physician, or a physics guy. Or why am I learning about chemistry? I don't want to be a lab rat. Guys, everything has a purpose. It might not look at it the first few years of medicine, but once you're in 6th year or last year like me, you realize, bro, I wish I studied more for physics or for biochemistry. I mean, biochemistry did well, to be honest, but like chemistry, I don't know. It all adds up. It's all important. It's all science. It's all there for the purpose. And when you put it all together, you're going to realize how beautiful science is. It's beautiful. You have these cells dying, right? And eventually they're going to die to a point where they're so thinned out that you're going to have perforation, right? All this, septic, nasty, glucose stuff that piled up is also going to be causative. It's going to perforate and it's going to cause peritonitis. It's going to cause go to your peritoneum, and it's going to be causative for septic. Now you have septic shock. So at the beginning you dealt with hypolemic, but then this thing broke down and you were happy because you fixed this, and now you got this, which is worse. Because then you got to go with empirical drug therapy until you find out what the actual drug is going to be when you want to limit it later. And you're going to do your ABCs, and I mean, not even, you're going to go beyond that. I mean, airways, breathing, circulation, but also you're going to put them in intensive care. I mean, you don't want this. And hopefully you don't get to this, and even to this, to be honest, you don't want to get, but that's obstruction in a nutshell. So guys, a simple concept can cause so many problematics, You're also going to have tenesmus if it's severe, because you keep on expanding things, but you still feel like you have something there. That's tenesmus. Dilation, perforation, it's all. And it's colon cancer is no joke. That's why the Duke Institute, they were like, let's stage this bad boy. But how do you stage this bad boy? Oh, you stage it like this. I think it was, I believe it was 5 stages, and that was like 3 years ago we did this. Gastro. Yeah. No, we did it. Oh, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, the new staging was something like this. So you got stage 0, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 stages because 0 counts, guys. Even a 0 is a hero. Alright, then just do that. Okay. So if you're at stage 0, I believe, guys, don't quote me on the numbers. Again, if you want numbers, if you want to memorize anything, Google, textbook, Harrison's, professor, something. I mean, I'm just trying to understand. Memorization is not my forte. I mean, you gotta memorize, of course, but some new paper is gonna come out next year and be like, no, it's not 90% chance of 5 years survival. It's actually 100. It's not 70%. It's actually 75. So it's like every year there's new guidelines. So don't focus on memorizing stuff. I think stage 4 was like 5%. This was like 30, and this was something in between these two. And that's Duke, right? That's Duke. That's one way to stage it. Duke. Video game, man. Used to love video games when I was a kid. I was the biggest nerd, man. I knew all of them, man. I used to love strategy games, like Civilization, Age of Empires. Age of Empires 4 is coming out, but I'm damn near, a doctor now, and can't even think of. Even if I had the time, I shouldn't be doing it. I should be doing productive stuff. Anyways, let me just check the battery on this bad boy. I keep on saying bad boy. It makes me sound like a douche. Alright, so, okay. Bro, it's been an hour with this. I'm gonna drink some water. Whew. Oh man, I'm so chalky. Okay. All right, so that's what we have here. And again, you know, you do an endoscopy to double check, get a tube up in here. It's got a light, it's got a camera, do a biopsy. All right, you see that stuff, it's not good stuff. And yeah, bro, so that's that. Yeah. Going back, you know, like, okay, we talked about cancer, right? We talked about the genetics of it, treatment. Well, if it's a cancer, here we do a hemocolectomy. This would be a left-sided one. I mean, they have more specific names. I'm just, you know, or if it's here, we do the total, depending on the, you know, on the tumor, God, I messed that up. The tumor itself, the nodes involved, the metastasis involved, right? That's different staging. And depending on that, if it's just a tumor, like stage 1 to 2, this can, you know, move a bit of the colon. If it's nodes, then you gotta also do chemo, radio, stuff like that. If it's not too many nodes, you can still get away with cutting it. If it's a lot of nodes, and especially if they metastase, so if they went distantly and invaded our areas, you gotta do full chemo, man. That's oncology. I guess I would use something like cisplatin. That seems to be an oncological favorite among many drugs, but there's many chemo drugs. 5-30 or so, yeah, that's a good one. I would probably ID it, right? But that's you know, that's going to specific oncology. Yeah, okay. So what's up? I don't know what's up. Nothing much. Just talking to myself. All right. So we have this situation right here, and I'm getting bored of it, and I think we got enough of this gastro stuff. So we did some emergency medicine, we did some gastro, we did some genetics and hematology. Right? Let's talk some cardiology maybe, you know? That's fun. That's always fun and important. I mean, we talked about ischemic colitis about half an hour ago. Well, ischemic colitis, if you have congestive heart failure, for example, any arrhythmias, and there's no blood flow going to the colon, that could be cause of ischemic colitis. Again, there's so many things that can happen when you have CHF. It's just, I can't even, right? Actually, I have to, so let's do it. So let's keep it simple. Right, so superior, inferior vena cava, heart, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, right? Aortic valve, pulmonary valve, okay? So, yeah, it's nasty. It's like dissected almost, okay. So, boom. It's very simple, very ugly, I'm sorry. I can do better. I really could. But do we have time? Nope. Okay, so just having fun, guys. Having fun, but we're focusing on understanding. I mean, if I wanted to make an artwork, that would take 2 hours. And yeah, it's pretty to see, but what's the point? You can't use it. I mean, you could, but I could, you know. I'm getting tired, man, I'm getting tired. I'm new to this. And I didn't have breakfast. That was all my game. Oh man. Probably didn't do orthopedics now, right? Maybe I should, I don't know. I got that little bit of that bro mentality. I swear, I'm not a douche, it's just, I sound like one. I think. People tell me that sometimes. Anyways. Heart, right? Let's just talk about heart failure. That's a big topic. What kind of heart failures we can have? Well, we can have left-sided heart failure, right-sided heart failure, or if you're not lucky enough, you can have both of these bad boys, both of those. It's a mix, right? But usually, for the sake of argument, we usually say left and right side heart failure, okay? So, cool, those are the sides, and what are, let's go deeper. So, you can have a systolic heart failure, and you can have diastolic heart failure, right? So, when it comes to systolic, what do we mean? So, what is systole? It's, we pump blood out, right? So, usually the left ventricle is the thickest one. So actually I'm going to go with the thinner one. The right ventricle is a bit thinner than the left ventricle. So here we can have an example of, and again it could be side, I mean it really depends on genetics. In fact, I'm going to get to the factors and why in the etiology, but in a right ventricular one, right, you have, this would look like systolic pathology, right? Because now it's expanded, right? And the walls are actually thinner and weaker, and much thinner. I really messed it up, but it's thinner, okay? Thin walls, okay? So you have thinner walls, and so it's harder to pump when you have weaker walls, Whereas in that would be systolic failure, right? Because they pump at the same time, these two. And of course, this is the main big boy, but also this is a very important part. So you have a thinner morphology, pathomorphology, and whereas LV, we can use an example of a diastolic failure, perhaps, caused by hypertrophy of this bad boy, much thicker, so there's now less space, right? And when you have less space, you have less fluid to fill, and when there's less filling, right? Diastole is where the filling happens. Now you have diastolic failure, so there's less blood to fill. But there's one main difference, and you can use a Doppler, right? And use a Doppler to actually measure this, and this is called the ejection fraction, right? About 50-70% is good. 50-70% is what you want. That's good. The danger is when it's less or equal than 40, right? That's bad. So pretty much it's the volume ejected, right, divided by the one that filled. So in a thin, and again it could be side. Don't focus too much on the sides, but when you have a situation where there is a systolic failure, the concept is easy. You're ejecting less, right? You're ejecting less, so less blood is ejected, right? But the filling hasn't really changed. I mean, divided by filling, right? Which is stationary. So overall, we have a lessened EF, whereas in a systolic failure, there's less blood ejected, yes, but also less blood filled, right? Jesus. I use a bigger one. It's blood filled. So that's actually the EF percentage-wise is not really changed, right? So that's called preserved. Boom. Okay. And what could be causative for a diastolic failure? Well, usually less space could be caused for restriction, right? So what could be restrictive? Well, one could be hypertrophy of the myocardial muscle, right? So and that's could be genetic. For example, the familial, hypertrophy, familial hypertrophy is, or it could actually be secondary. Actually, put it like this. It could be secondary to aortic stenosis. Because let's think about this, guys. If this was normal at the beginning, right? But there's either here, right, a stenosis here, right? Stenosis, okay? Then blood is going to have a harder time pushing through it because it's stenosed, it's calcified. It's like there's less space to push through it. Blood has got to push through. So as a compensation, this bad boy becomes more bad boy, becomes bigger, stronger. It hypertrophies, just like your muscles. They get bigger when there's a resistance against it, right? But it doesn't have to be stenosis. It could be normal here, right? Let's say. But you have over time hypertension. You're a hypertensive person, and walls get thinner because here there's a bit of a thickening, right? Over time, that's why hypertension is a big one, actually. And that would be causative for this also compensating and becoming stronger because it's got to pass through a thinner, it's like blowing on a tube, man. If it's a wide tube, then it's easier to blow through, but if it's like a thinner tube, there's less space to blow through. You have to push harder, right? So less volume, more pressure, right? That's just physics, it's chemistry, it's everything. That stuff matters, guys, see? So, and here, we have less volume and increased pressure. More pressure, compensation, to push through that pressure. And how do we lessen that? Well, this is already too late, but one could try with, if it's an emergency, for example, you can use an arterial dilator, one that comes to mind, I don't know, hydrolysine, But the nitros are usually for venous, so for preload. So you want something that actually works on the afterload. You want to, so you widen that, and again the pressure is less. But by then it's already too late. That's an emergency kit, so you want to prevent that or work through that. If it's stenosis, you can fix it surgically. That's cool. You can put a valve in it, but. Yeah, okay. So we said stenosis, right? Secondary to stenosis, aortic stenosis like here, or secondary to hypertension, right? Restriction. And to get my point across, so less space, we have a diastolic failure. That's diastolic failure right there. Okay, it's cool, man. I mess with that. What am I talking about? All right. So, and there's also many. It could be genetic, as I said. It could be secondary. Could be aortic valve stenosis, hypertension. And then thinning, which again could be both sides, or restricted, which could be both sides. If you have a pulmonary valve stenosis, then perhaps that could also cause hypertrophy, let's say. Although it's more common on the left side, but still. On the right side, we said, we talked about systolic failure, so a failure to push blood out, because how can you push blood out if like, you got such a weak wall, you can't really pump, it's just going to fill up, there's not the strength to do it. And yeah, so in this situation, we actually have a lot of space, in contrast to the previous case. There are a lot of space, but we can't push it out because there's no strength to it, the wall is thin. So what's going to happen? What can cause this, right? So actually, usually, if you have a left-sided heart failure, it will be causative for a right-sided heart failure. That's usually what happens, right? Because think about it. let's say we have a restriction problem here, right? And we have a diastolic failure. Blood, there's stenosis or hypertension. Blood tries to go, and it's first compensated, but over time this will, decompensate because there's still less oxygen. Because it's a dying battle, and it's like pushing a stone up a mountain. That was an analogy, and a little stone coming back up every time, and you think you're healing yourself. It's the same, because less oxygen, less ADP, and over time, and hypertrophy muscles are hard. Upkeep is up. That's why bodybuilding is a hard job. You have to always. It's unnatural to a certain extent. Maybe I should quit. Yeah, maybe I should. Anyways, but it's unnatural because you always have to provide more resources. Those are extrinsic resources to bodybuilding. Here, this hypertrophy of your heart muscles is using body resources, and the body resources are very finite. And there's beginning with a compensation, but eventually it's going to turn as cells die. These hypertrophied cells die. You're actually going to end up with atrophy worse than before over time, because there's not enough resources to give enough oxygen to these bulked up cells, right? Anyhow, so the hypertrophy compensation, try to push it through. Eventually there's decompensation, so blood comes back in to the left ventricle, then to the left atrium, then to the lungs, right? Ow. Then to the lungs, and then from the lungs to the right atrium, and then right ventricle, and then to the vena cava, right? It's going to go to your jugular, and it's going to go to your feet, right? And that's right-sided. It's all a system, guys. It's just like, it's like a car, it's like a machine, right? You gotta, don't memorize, just understand. It all makes sense if you put it together. So, this left-sided heart failure has become causative for pulmonary edema, right? For congestion, and you're gonna have all this fluid here, so your cough is gonna be pinkish when you spit it out. But eventually, over time, that will back up, and will cause, first of all, pulmonary hypertension in most cases, right? So it's a never-ending vicious cycle. We just keeps on getting worse and worse. And then when you have, because of that hypertension pulmonary-wise, and because of the back altogether, it's multifactorial, blood is going to start backing up to the right atrium, and then this is not going to be able to handle it. It's going to back up to the right ventricle. I'm so sorry. It's going to back up first to the right ventricle, and then to the right atrium. And from the right atrium, it's going to go. I'm tired, guys. But yeah, so it's backing up from right ventricle, left ventricle, left atrium, lungs, right ventricle, and then right atrium, and then your jugulars. You're going to see the big jugular sign. It's going to be nice and thick because blood is backing up. You're going to see edema, through the legs especially. It's going to be big because all the fluid is going back up from inferior vena cava, superior vena cava to the jugular. And so yeah, LV, LA, lungs, RV, RA, jugular, feet. So the congestion you see in a left heart failure has mostly got to do with the lung. Congestive heart failure can cause pulmonary congestion. Whereas, as I said, right failure is more peripheral, right? But there's also one tip, if you, clinically speaking, with left-sided failure, you're going to have a patient which urinates much less, if at all, because now the blood is not coming and it's not providing the blood, the genital area. So you're going to have in the, all right, let's call this left, call this right. All right, so you're going to have less urination, whereas in the right, actually, you guessed it right, you're going to have more urination, especially nocturnal. And guess why? Well, think about that. Like, all this blood is backing up, it's going peripherally, and especially at night when the patient is lying down, right? So you got a patient lying down, at night, there's a pillow, there's a little bed, right? It's floating on this. All right, boom, boom. All the edema, I really don't pronunciation sucks with it. It's gonna go towards the bladder, right? And then you have more frequent urination, right? So again, there's many ways to differentiate these two, but just quickly, right? Right-sided failure, you would see the jugular sign, you would see the nocturnal incontinence, you would see peripheral edema, especially the legs. And left side pulmonary congestion is like your main to go. I mean, also there's more than urination, there's many problems, kidney problems, but we're gonna keep it simple and short with this one, right? So again, this can get weakened due to many factors, genetics. So you can have restrictive, genetic cardio restriction, or it could be idiopathic, so no reason, like we don't know why. I mean, there's the problem I have with idiopathic, it's not that there's no reason, there is a reason, we just don't know what that reason is yet. With more research and with AI, eventually we'll find out. There's always a cause and effect, always. Remember that law. And you're a champ if you know which law I'm talking about, all right? There's always a cause and effect. We just don't have the cause yet. We didn't find that out. We're gonna eventually. For now, we call it idiopathic because we don't know, because we're humble. And when we don't know, we give it fancy names. That's anti-humble, but okay, whatever. I mean, not really, because we don't use that as a status symbol, but some people do. What am I saying? Okay. All right, so yeah, okay. But one main one that everybody talks about, not only medicine, but just in the media, it's atherosclerosis, right? Because we talked about hypertension here, right? And it could be causative due to shear pressure being too strong and causing compensating hypertrophy of the vessels, but it could also be that we have this gunk, it's calcified stuff in the vessels, right? And that could be causative for pressure, or it's not only after the aorta, at the aorta level, but even the vessels that supply the heart, I'm not even gonna be anatomically correct, guys. I mean, it's already a mess. But you got the coronary artery of the heart, and if these coronary arteries get these plaques, over time there's less blood going to be coming to, there's going to be less blood feeding these muscles, because they're muscles too, right? You gotta remember, the heart feeds itself too. It's a very intricate, amazing, smart system, guys. So if you don't have blood coming in and filling and nourishing these, over time they're gonna die. They're gonna thin and thin and thin. They're not even gonna be able to do hypertrophy anymore because they don't have the resources to even attempt such a bold maneuvers to go, to have such bravado, to be like, I want to be bigger and stronger and push through my challenges. No, sometimes you gotta be smart and circumvent your challenges. And that's why you do stents, right? And that's the word of someone right here. So you got this atherosclerosis, and your coronary artery, your main ones are not feeding. So you can bypass it, you can do a coronary bypass, and then now you have blood circumventing and flowing here and supplying your muscles. Or you can just do, instead of this bypass, you can just do a stent, boom, and then flatten this with a catheter. You put a stent on it, and it will expand, so now blood can flow through. There's many ways to do it. And if all goes wrong and you can't do that, and your ventricle is like, nah bro, I don't wanna, I can't, okay. You just switch it. With technology, we can do many things. We can just insert an LVAD, right? And the LVAD will just supply that pumping action. Actually, there's the silent ones in which you don't hear a pump, so the guy's just walking around, and you're like a doctor, and you're like, I mean, if you're an experienced doctor, you're like, oh, somebody has an LVAD, don't I? Or if you're a resident and you're new and you're just fresh grad, you're like, oh my god, this guy has no pulse. And you freak out, like, don't freak out, man. It's an LVAD, or it could be an RVAD if it's the right ventricle, or it could be a BiVAD. You can have a BiVAD, so a biventricular VAD, which would hit both, make pumping action, work without the muscles. So we talked about atherosclerosis, right? So, as a causative for this, right? So, we talked about hypertrophy, the genetics, the diet, which causes atherosclerosis. We talked about hypertension being a causative. There's many factors. For the right side, the left side usually is causative. But one important one that I don't want to miss out on talking to you guys is what else could cause weakening here or here, right? It's, causing it, not really, but could cause, right? And then eventually it could be a vicious cycle again, it could worsen. So over time, this is stretching out and it's destroying cells, it's damaging them at least, it's irritating these. You know what I'm getting at with irritation, guys. If you're irritating these cells, well, over time, when you have cellular irritation, the Doppler for ejection fraction, I think you guys understood that, terminal sclerosis. So, when, oh my God, okay, I'm tired, I'm just tired. They don't pay us enough, they don't pay us, well, they shouldn't pay us, to be honest, we're just students. All right, so, eventually, these cells, right, just blowing this one up here, they got irritated, they might even die off, they will die off eventually. But let's say they don't die off in this scenario, and they get irritated before dying off, right? And it's not only like in here, it could also be in here, like in the actual inside, so irritation here and here, right? There's all kinds of stuff here, but let's focus on here, right? Well, if some of them damaged, right? Damage leads to irritation. Not always, but it's usual. It does get to irritation. And eventually this causes, is irritated. It could cause arrhythmic scenarios, right? Scenarios. Because if they're irritated, they can't work properly, right? So when they can't work properly, right? You got these cells, and you also got the whole, the SA, the AV, Purkinje, Bumblefizz. All these guys are also, these cells are fed by these neural pathways, nerves. And everything gets irritated, and gets all wavy. And you can start with the compensatory tachycardia. Tachycardia is more than 100 beats per minute. But eventually it's gonna go away. There's gonna be this one, like right around here, there's gonna be like this one guy, which when he hits on each other back and forth, and it's like really like doing something. It's a focal, because you have a compensatory focal, oh, I'm tired, man. All right. Focal wavelets, about 60 to 80, but they can take over. And they can cause atrial flutter, man. It could be. We're talking SVTs, but you can also have DVTs, right? DVT. DVT, boy. Right? DVT, man, what the hell? No, didn't I just rewrite DVT? Ventricular tachy with a, okay. DVT, that's deep vein thrombosis, guys. I'm sorry. All right, so I should have eaten breakfast. Anyway. Yeah, these guys can get all crazy, and if these get damaged, and then you got the back and forth between refractory periods and non-refractory periods, they're going to bounce up on each other. It's going to go local, and you can have above even 300 BPMs, right, beats per minute. And what does that entail? You got a very increased heartbeat. But if it's like around 300 here, when it goes down, it's actually not going to be 300 because we have we have here there's a refractory period. We got 150 beats at most, probably if it's about 300 to 400. So we got these on the ECG. If you guys look at it in atrial fibrillation, we get patterns, right? So let's get an R right here, and let's say we put 1, 2, 3, and then an R again. 1, 2, 3, and the QRS, right? That's the R. The QRS, and then you get a P's here too, and we get here 1, 2, 3, 3 to 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, and it could also be 2 to 1, 1, they could be 4 to 1. There's 3 P's for each 1 R, right? But the distance between the, oh my god, the distance between the R's actually doesn't change, right? So we get this actually more like this sawtooth pattern. In contrast to the next evolution, which is the worst one, which is atrial fibrillation. Fibrillation is quivering, right? And we get this like bad worms, right? It's quivering, and it's usually in the left atrium because there's blood backs up, and we get the left heart failure here gets expanded, gets destroyed, and you can have 400 to 600 beats per minute. I mean, you can have a really high amount. Not even beats, to be honest. What am I saying? It's just quivering. It's like this. It's not blood will pool. It can't really effectively. It's causative for syncope. It's causative for many problems, right? So, you have a situation of irregular rates now, because if it's quivering, you can't really have. Even this is not nice, but it's still better than what you're gonna have here. There's no P waves, guys. These bad waves right here, they're not even existent in a fibrillation, right? In atrial fibrillation. You can also have ventricular fibrillation, but again, we're just going to say the most common one. And what's the problem with atrial fibrillation, right? Well, blood might pool here when it becomes static because it's quivering, it's not really pushing through it. And when we have a static, when we have nothing, blood just pooling and not moving, not being able to be ejected as much as possible. Some blood is going to stay, a little valve here, blood is going to stay. What's going to happen? You guys guess it? Blood pools, it clots, and what does the clot do? It might break off, cause an embolus, and go right to your brain and will cause a stroke, right? It's left atrium, right? From the left atrium to the left ventricle, whoop, or side, whoop, all the way, sudden stroke. That's why you get them in warfarin if we know, right? We get them, there's many ways to go. I'll get to the pharmacology, but maybe I'm getting really tired, so maybe later, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. Actually, one fun fact. Could blood, because usually when we're talking like these type of strokes, we're talking from the left side. How could it be from the right side? Well, let's say that the patient had a atrial septal defect, right? Well, now, again, maybe it wouldn't pool here, but let's say it was DVT, right? Now we get it in, so from your legs, usually from here, below here, popliteal, and the ambulance breaks off of a clot, and it would travel to the right atrium, right ventricle, and it would shoop. Haha, we didn't even get to the lungs. It would just shoop, and then from here, we have the left atrium, left ventricle, and shoop, and that would also cause a stroke, right? And this is looking disgusting. It's looking very messy. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry. I really had to. When you don't plan things, that's why you always gotta plan things. How am I gonna be a teacher if I just go spontaneous? You can't go spontaneous when this happens. It's disgusting. My God. But hey, since we're talking about DVTs, let's jump to that topic, right? But before doing DVTs, there's many things. So instead of Doppler, I raised it to check for ejection fraction, right? You can also check for the BNPs, the brain natriuretic peptide. And I believe it was like, if it's more than 900, and that's a serious case. About 300 to 600, it's also serious but less serious. And less than 300, it's mild, and 100 is normal. And that's what is the BNP. It's just when your heart compensates, right? It stretches, and when the heart stretches, it releases more of this BNP into the system. Because when there's a problem with the heart, initially, as we said, hypertrophy is one type of compensation, right? BNP is from the stretching. So we were trying to, the Frank-Sterling law, right? Actually, let's talk about heart compensation before moving on to DVTs. From and stuff like that. And now you're going to learn about Frank-Sterling law, which a lot of people think it's useless because it's, applies to physics and first year science stuff that people think it's useless, but it's not useless. Everything has a purpose, but just people have to focus more on giving us the big picture first, so we understand the significance of what we're learning, and then maybe we'll be more motivated to learn it. Professors don't know better, older generation. Needs that new baby. We need that new. But the new doesn't know anything either, so It's not really the most ideal. Anyways, I'm ranting again. Right, okay. So, we said the heart wants to compensate, right? So, one of them is by hypertrophy, right? So, this will bulk up. That's one way to compensate. Another one, and actually the first one, so this, let's say this is the second, actually the third, right? The third way. We have adrenergic receptors, right? All over this. So our sympathetic, I know we're talking some neurology, sympathetic system, nervous system is gonna, bring on some, it's gonna engage some hormonal reactions that will be causative for increasing heart rate, increasing, stroke volume, and just trying to increase the BP, right? Because these two, they're high, this is high, right? But eventually this also decompensates because your body can only do that for so long. So then we're trying to increase the filling volume. And Frank Sterling actually was a great professor, and he came up with the Frank-Sterling equation, which I'm not even going to draw a graph because that would take, it wouldn't honor him if I did it fast. So I'm just going to go with the gist of it. So, look, you have, I'm not even going to do this, man. You have this, you want some of this. You're just trying to stretch it. Because if, let's say you're at 100 mLs, if you just get more blood into it, now you're 115 mLs, let's say you add a teaspoon, so 115 mLs, boom. Now you got more blood to work with, more blood to pump, and the stretching mechanism, because of this, increases and catalyzes our processes, right? It causes it to pump harder, pump faster, pump more blood, more film. Because when you feel more, it's like a rubber band, right? Stretch it more. Once it snaps, it's going to snap stronger because the volume is bigger now, right? Here it's, this is really extreme. So I think this is more appropriate. This was 100 mLs, this was 115 mLs, right? And then it's like, right? And shoot. So, number two, right? So, and when you stretch, as I said, you would see more PMP in the blood work. And of course, you can search for hyperlipidemia and claim on statins later on. That's a different topic, though. So sympathetic nervous system, eventually it will decompensate our body. There's going to be so much sympathetic activity that receptors are going to be downregulated over time. So these are also going to, lower this, in consequence, maybe lower. Our hypertrophy, everything decompensates, guys. There's nothing good lasts forever. And this was not even good, it's fake good because it's hypertrophy. The original thing was good in the beginning. This illusionary good thing wouldn't happen also. This also decompensates. The stretching over time is not going to be enough, and overall it's just going towards failure, and it's going to go pretty linear towards failure. It's not exponential, no. It's actually a linear failure. Over time, try to compensate, but more fail, because it's a losing battle. That's why we want to prevent heart problems. Preventing heart problems, you can start by exercising, diet changes. So if you exercise, you have better blood flow is more smooth. Get your cardiovascular exercise. If you get a diet, just eat more fibers, don't eat fatty foods as much as possible. Again, these are things that are subject to change. Nutritional guidelines are changing all the time, so I'm not gonna lecture you on what to eat. But the general rule is like, eat more vegetables, eat more fruits, eat more fiber, don't eat too much red meat. That's the usual, right? Again, I don't even want to get into a vegan argument, right? Hey, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm barely a doctor yet, so don't shoot me, guys. This is all that I've been taught. I'm just trying to synthesize it. That's all. So, exercising, diet, and then actually, if that's not enough to, actually before that, and you can use drugs, right? But before doing drugs, to assess the exercise and the heart, what's going on, you can do a stress test, for example. A stress test. Which literally, it's got, if I remember correctly, So yeah, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And you get him on a bike, right? So here you get him on a bike, and here you get him on nothing. They're just normal, right? Here, no symptoms. No symptoms. They're walking, they're talking, they're not fatigued, they're fine. And here, they're also fine on the bike. We're doing an exercise test. Here, there's still no symptoms. Here, slightly, mildly, but not even. Here, they already have mild symptoms. When they do the test, they have more symptoms. And here, they have symptoms, and when they do the test, they're pretty much almost dying in front of you. So you're gonna get them to the ER. Not the ER, but more symptoms. Those are the staging stress tests. But anyways, so well, you can use. Let's go to pharmacology, right? So what you can do. Actually, before that, yeah, because we want to talk about ACE inhibitors, right? ACE inhibitors, and if you have the money, or if the ACE inhibitors ain't working right, you can go with angiotensin receptor blockers, so the sartans. So sartans, and the ACE inhibitors. One that comes to mind is the was it captopril? It's a good one. I mean, no, it's enopro. Yeah, let's go with the prills. Anyways, yeah, you get the point. Prills. There's so many. There's enopro, captopril, valsartan. And pharmacologically, what's the difference? It's that with ACE inhibitor, you're inhibiting the ACE enzyme, so the Renin-angiotensin. Right, why did I want to mention that? Because the filling here with transferring mechanism, how do you get more blood in here to fill it? Well, the brain, the heart, it goes by recruiting more antidiuretic hormone and more aldosterone. Aldo, right? Antidiuretic hormone, the name says it itself. Antidiuresis, right? So less urination. Or volume kept. Aldosterone is the same. Well, not the same, but it retains water, right? But its mechanisms are a bit different. I can go with nephrology a bit, but my nephrology professor is very strict, and I wouldn't want to anger him. So I'm not even going to try. Maybe I'll try, just a little bit. Don't kill me. Okay. All right. So this brings back water, and now you get a 15 milliliter. It's not 15 all the time. Could be more, could be less, but roughly. And you have a transferring mechanism, more fluid, more push. Okay, all right. You ready? So, what? Really, I can't. I just get this new chalk. It's not even. I'm consuming chalk, man. Like it's. Okay. ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers. So, ACE inhibitors. So for this system to work, right, there's also stimulation of a pathway called the Renin-angiotensin system pathway, right? And to make you understand the pharmacology here and how it affects this, it's also good for hypertension, guys. It's not just for, right? This actually is one of the first measures for one of the easiest ways to cure hypertension, to deal with, you can't cure it, but to manage it. Don't cure, manage. Big difference. They're not curative, they're just for management. Also diuretics. It sounds really, my mind is everywhere, guys. I'm sorry, I just always, and I dream about these things sometimes, it's like a whole system, it's like all jumbled up, it has to be holistic. I can't do pieces, I can't do micro, I have to do macro. You gotta see it, all of them working together, all the systems, the heart, the kidney, at the same time, simultaneously, what's gonna affect, that makes it fun. So I like memorizing, I just work out. Anyways, bro. So, off the limb, ACE, and I'm just gonna start with my right hand now, I'm getting tired. Alright, okay, so we got ACE inhibitor, good renin-angiotensin system. I'll erase some stuff. Did you guys get it better? Okay, so we talked about how the body intrinsically compensates and tries to remove the insult, or it tries to help cure, manage it, but the body thinks it's probably removing it, but we know it's managing it. Can't remove it. Everybody knows, you guys don't know. It would know yourselves an interesting thing we do. So, renin, right? Angiotensin, aldosterone system. So, we got ACE, right? What happens here? Technically, it's a situation in which, to put it short, we have the kidneys, right? The kidneys. That's a weird ass kidney. Okay. I'm tired. That's all. Right. So there is more renin, right? Released into the system. And this entails, so the kidneys release more renin, and sounds like venin, boom, renin, like renal. That's where the name comes from, anyways, renal, renin. And more renin would cause the circulating, right? So blood circulation. Nothing to do here. We have our circulating angiotensinogen, right? Angiotensinogen. This is made by the liver, by the way. It will cause it to become angiotensin 1, right? And then we have ACE, right? ACE enzyme, right? This is in our lungs, right? Okay. Able to and now we have Ang2, and that's what we love, Ang, yay, Ang2, right? AG, Ang2. So, you can see the difference between my left hand and my right hand. I suck at both. I'm just a bad handwriter. I'm just tired. I think I said it like 20 times already. Alright, so, and this brings all sorts of good stuff. It increases, blood pressure pretty much. It causes a lot of mechanisms which I'm not going to even get into because I'm just dragging this too long. But anyhow, we want less hypertension, less, this increases blood pressure, so we want to decrease blood pressure. So now we go back to the pharmacology. We got ACE inhibitors. If you have an ACE inhibitor, it will go against this, and if you go against this, you have less of this, right? And because this, right, this bad boy goes to receptors, right, in cells, right, and these cells would constrict them. There's many factors. There's also water retaining factors, but can't get into that. It would be too long. But if we block ACE, we block this, and this would not happen. We would not have an increase in blood pressure. But sometimes some patients are really allergic, but not sensitive to this, or for example, I think captopril is a type of ACE, and if I remember correctly, captopril can cause dry coughs. So you sometimes have those problematics. So you can just especially if you're in a country that can afford to give you or if you're in America, a good health insurance, you can afford perhaps something better with less side effects. Again, the side effects are minimal for both. Some a little bad way, but anyways, going back. So you can also have an angiotensin receptor inhibitor. So you can inhibit this with this, right? Boom, 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 ka-cha! Right? And then the same systematic. Or you want to take a step further. You rich, and you got sources to hook you up. You can use aliqurin. God, I can't pronounce that right. Aliqurin, which goes against renin. And if you don't have renin, this whole thing doesn't happen. That also is a way to reduce blood pressure. So these are ACE inhibitor, angiotensin inhibitors. In a nutshell, very simple pharmacological, systematic. And now you have reduced blood pressure. But let's say you have congestive heart failure, right? And not even congested, you just have congestion, doesn't matter. And you want to urese it, right? You use diuretics. Furosemide is one of the top ones. It's furo, baby. It's one of the most used ones, actually. And furosemide, it works on the kidneys, you know. So it causes uresis, and it causes excess water weight to be uresed out. That's even a way to say it. And what if the patient can't work with furosemide? Then you can go with a more expensive drug. You can go with because this usually works on the. It works on the. Let me draw it. Wait. I'll draw it for you guys. So there's the kidney nephron, the family right here, right? Boom, and then collecting that. So furosemide works somewhere around here, right? Okay, wait. So thick, thin, blue, right? So descending thin limb, furosemide usually works around here. And around thick ascending, you can have and collecting that area. This area, you can also, in this area, have a spironolactone, which works on the NAK pump, right? So it would be causative for a situation in which it's K-sparing. So why we want K-sparing? Because we don't want the patient to, if depending on the mineral electrolyte balance, we don't want them to be hypokalemic, right? Low potassium is bad. Same as hyperkalemia. High potassium is also bad. High and low, everything is bad. We want balance. The body wants balance. The world wants balance. It goes from the microbiological level to the macrobiological level, and then if you think about it, the whole macroeconomics, everything looks like the body. If you understand medicine, you understand the economy. Okay, that's a stretch. But there's a lot of overlap, guys. We're all systems in there. We're all just little, atoms just putting our heads. We're all just, systems. And if you can correlate, get systems thinking and mental models, and you can apply very basic but potent concepts and find overlap into other domains in your life. Carry over, guys. Holistic thinking. These are important. These are the next big things if you want to get a job in the next 10 years, I think. I don't know. Trends change. We cannot predict. If anybody tells you that they can predict the future, or they can predict the economy, or they can predict political stuff, they're lying to you. They don't know. Even the experts usually don't know. Especially in this day and age where everything's so fast and changing by the minute, you can't predict anything. I know I'm ranting again. Okay, so furosemide, spironolactone, K-sparing, yeah. Okay. Oh man. So I'm not even going to get deeper because I'm getting into nephrology. I don't want to do that. And it's just nice. There we go. Rules. Okay. That's a good thing. There's many of these. And hypertension actually over time causes damage here. Also diabetes. But before, okay, now I'm just jumping everywhere, baby. All right. So we said ACE inhibitors at the lung level. There's not only ACE angiotensin converting enzyme. It's not only available in the lungs, there's also other places. I think the liver also has it. It's a minimal amount, but the majority is in the lungs. So that's why captopril causes you a cough because it affects the lungs as well. So I use Enopro, for example. We use Sartan if you have money. Then you got aliskiren for Renin, ACE inhibitor, or angiotensin receptor inhibitor. They all work the same thing, just at different levels, but the result is what we're trying to get is the same result. Then diuretics, furosemide for heart failure is good. Spironolactone is a K-sparing drug, so that you don't have too much of that sodium in your trade. Because when you're diuresing out sodium with furosemide, there's a problem here where all that excess sodium doesn't get absorbed here. comes here and trades in for potassium, and now potassium is getting decreased down, sodium goes back in, so you're going to have hypokalemia. And on ECG, the problem is if, like, let's just clear it out. So you can have something of a depression at the weight level, right? With hypokalemia, whereas with hyperkalemia, you, for example, would have a spiked up P wave, but it's a bit, okay, I'm not even going to get to that, that's a different topic. And the terminology is a bit different, especially for the hypokalemic heart problematics, but okay. Hey, I'm just a student. But that's no excuse. I want to read about it tonight again to review. Because these are lives we're talking about, guys. And save life, teach us, I don't know. Sometimes, if it's a late stage heart problem, we gotta go with the big boys. You guys know what I'm talking about. Or you don't know, I don't know. Do I know what I'm talking about? Yes, I do. At least I pretend I do. Alright. Alright, so ill, sign, and nil. Alright? Alright. These are calcium channel blockers, so these are also good. And then, before, if you remember, I said that the sympathetic system, it's working over the clock to try and increase the heart rate and, increase stroke volumes, to increase cardiac output. Oh, did I just say BP without saying cardiac output before? Anyways, the cardiac output and then eventually BP. Well, you can, sometimes that's too much. You want to lessen the beta blockers. So these are calcium channel blockers. So calcium channel blockers, and then you got beta blockers. Okay. And when you use beta blockers, some famous ones that come to mind. You're going to use beta 1 selective ones usually, so you don't affect the lungs. You don't want bronchoconstriction, for example. So you can use beta 1 selective ones. But again, it's not so straightforward because even the beta 1 selective ones, they have crossover sometimes. So if you give too much, then all of a sudden the patient is also like not breathing. So you're also going to manage the amounts. It's not just qualitative, it's also quantitative, right? So with beta blockers, I don't know, man. I know all of them. Right now, so I'm going. Really? My God, I'm tired. Okay. I'll remember all of them as I go on. So, I need water. That's all. Yeah. Yeah, I was dehydrated. Okay. So atenolol, for example. Atenolol, metoprolol, lol. Yeah, there's it's better lol. So actually atenolol is bad for pregnant women. It could be teratogenic. Teratogenic means that it could cause birth defects. So you want to go with this one if she's having eclampsia or whatnot. You want to manage it. You want to manage atenolol, metoprolol, propanolol. Anyways, so yeah, there's the lols. There's the calcium channel blockers. Actually, lutealism and verapamil. There's also galopamil, another type of mil. So calcium channel blockers, which work right in the heart. They don't really vasodilate. If you want more of a vasodilating effect, let's say if a pregnant woman for an emergency, you can use nifedipine. Nifedipine is the other one for especially pregnant women. Like if you have a pregnant woman with hypertension, nifedipine is good. Or you can go with alpha 1 blockers, for example, such as the alpha meta drug. Can't remember the full pharmaceutical name, but there's many pharmaceutical. Pharmacology is great, guys. But that would be If I start pharmacology, I should maybe one day. I should just like break it down in a pharmacological perspective. That's what we do. We just get drugs. Yeah, we understand the drugs, the systems, and what the drugs do to the systems, and then we manage our prescriptions based on that. That's medicine in a nutshell. At least if you're a general doc and not a orthopedic surgeon. Man, I should do orthopedics or cardiology or everything. I should just overdo everything casually. I'm just so messed up right now. Can't decide my specialization. Guys, I'm in my last year of medicine. I still don't know what to do with my specialization. I don't know. I like everything. I can't pick. I'm like a kid in a candy shop. There's too much candy. I think that's how everyone feels these days. You know, the information overload we have constantly, the information age. But man, it's hard. I gotta do my thesis, man. I gotta start it next month. So I gotta decide. I mean, it's not really decisive for your future, the thesis, but it'd be good to have that in my curriculum. Like I did a thesis on something I actually want to specialize in. I'll render to that tonight, as I usually do before sleep. All right, so we talked about the channel block, calcium channel blockers, the diuretics, the Renin-angiotensin, the ACE inhibitors, the beta blockers. It's not hard, man. It's not hard, really. It's not nephrology, cardiology. Sick of that, man. Let's go for something cool, something new. All right. Okay. Hey, melody. Every night you sing me something sweet. All right. What's up? All right. I remember half an hour ago, maybe a bit more, we brushed on the DVTs, my man. Let's get on that. All right. So clots, man. That's one hell of a topic. It's a big topic. We're gonna get on it because that's how we do. That's how we do it. So, right, you got a very badly drawn foot. You can tell it's a right foot because my chalk. All right, my chalk. Right, my chalk fell down. So the leg and it's an ass. All right. So below this line is where all the magic happens usually, right below the popliteal. But you can also have femoral, you can also have DVT, but usually the legs. And Virchow's triad explains that if we have a situation, I blew this on a, all right, 1, 2, 3, Virchow, or Virchow, or Virchow, I don't know how you pronounce it, forgive my ignorance. All right, we have a single one or multifactorial combination of these, and a situation of stasis, right? And then a situation of hypercoagulability. So let's just write hypercoag, and then just damage, right? So these are 3 factors that are causative for problematics in this level. So the veins here, right? Let's blow up a vein, right? So blood is flowing, right? Because we know here there's one-way valves, right? So the blood doesn't flow up from here unless, right? Because it's going like this, right? And there's valves which ensure it goes up and then they stay closed, right? So it's like, but it's like this. It's not gonna go up, goes up, right? All the way to your inferior vena cava and all that stuff. So how does that look like? So we got these one-way valves, and the musculature, right? Our muscles are the pump for this, and the more your muscles move, the more blood can go up. And that's how it flows. Now, if we're static, if we're like not moving, let's say you're hospitalized, long flights, or just long truck journeys, stuff like that, and you're immobile for too long, this would be causative. But usually it's not just this by itself, it's also the fact that you're in a hypercoagulative state. Say you're taking contraception, but you're susceptible to producing more coagulant factors and less anti-thrombin, for example, so less possibility to remove those factors later on. Or just damage, like you're doing surgery, right? For example, surgical, and you might damage some of these vessels over time or during, or just inflammation, right? So you could have inflammatory causation for this damage that we see, right? And I think I really need to get my lift in now. This is also getting tired, but I gotta have stamina, boy. Mine. So we got damage, hypercoagulation, stasis. All these treaties are retrostride, could be singular, but usually it's multifactorial. They cause damage here, so now these valvular systems are looking all messed up, and they're looking all like, and then blood just pulls down, right? You don't have this upward motion, and then it's compartmental, and then you got more pulling, and then you got more pulling, and you got more pulling, and it becomes all, look how thick it's becoming. Can you guess what this is? This is your veins becoming varicose style. Varicose-like. It's very costly, all right? It's very costly. And yeah, man, it's pulling down, it's varicose in nature. And yeah, so like, this happens, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem because blood is not getting back up; it's going down. It's not even that. It's not even the flow that's bothering us. Because if this is happening, then blood pools, right? And you have this situation where at some point, or actually closer to the bowels, let's say, usually, but it doesn't matter. It could be anywhere. Here, it pools and it can elongate, right? It could actually canalize towards more of a vessel. Many things could happen, or worse, or it could actually just disappear. We have plasminogens in our body that cause, plasmin to do its thing. Then you get D-dimers, right? I want to get to that. Anyways, or you can just say, again, as I said, you have this, and then one piece of this breaks off, right? Breaks off, and now it's flowing, right? Ooh. And where it's going to flow? Well, usually, as we said before, that's a weird part. Ready for it? Alright, so let's get it. So 1, 2. That's it. That's slightly indecent, but still disgusting. Alright. Yeah, so we got from the legs, right? This is going up, inferior vena cava, right? And all that stuff. And now we're at a heart level, right? And once we're in the right atrium, right ventricle, what happened afterwards? After we go to the lung, right? We go to the lungs, and we have a situation, right, where this embolized clot could just get stuck in one of the smaller airways, and it could be asymptomatic. Could be. It's just a little small part. It could be more symptomatic. It's a bigger one, and it could just kill you right away. It's the saddle, right? That's death. That's straight up like dyspnea, and then you right. So here at the saddle, but usually we're talking smaller. But if you have pieces of it breaking down a bit everywhere, then you're gonna start feeling this little. Now it's gonna be death tissue. Why? Because let's blow this up, right? So we got little capillaries, right? We got a little vessel right here. This is your blood just flowing. There's a little exchange here. Everyone's happy, usually, right? Air, blood, CO2, O2. You guys know I hope you done physiology, right? Or maybe not. Well, okay, your Guyton textbook. Guyton was a good physiology, but this is happening usually, right? But if we got some situation like this, right, where This little clot is now obstructing. Air is coming, right? Your V is fine. Your ventilation, your air, it's coming, it's fine. But your flow, your Q, right? You guys remember physics? Your Q is like, right? It's like, it's not going, it's just rebounding. And now, what's the point of having blood? So what's the point of having oxygen coming in if there's no blood to carry it, right? It's just a big old clot. I'm like, that's right home. All right, so now you got a VQ mismatch, right? You got a high V and a low Q, right? VQ mismatch. You can use scintigraphy, right, to get the V. You can use a radionucleotide to go into the lung session and kind of have a peek at the flow of the air. And for Q, for the flow, you can use angiography and see what's, get a little, again, radionucleotide, get a tag out of it, and it's going to flow. I'm really being simplistic here, and you're going to see what the blood is looking like, what the ventilation is looking like, the scintigraphy. So you use scintigraphy, boom, right? And here, angiography. Get the Q, get the V, see the mismatch, and of course you can have the inverse pattern, but that's kind of specific. And what happens here? Well, you're going to have a situation, if it's big enough and if it's symptomatic enough like dyspnea. You can have also syncope because, there's not blood going back up. You're going to pass out. And you're going to spontaneously get back up, hopefully. Hopefully, yeah. Unless you had somewhere, which is unfortunate, right? And that's why we got to really take care of these patients, especially hospitalized patients, right? You want to put them on warfarin, right? Warfarin. But sometimes you're unlucky. And going back to hematology, what if there's a reaction, right? Because let's pharmacologically first before hematology. Pharmacologically, we know what does warfarin do? It goes against your K, your VK. So, not even, yeah, okay, we put them on warfarin. I want to go for heparin first, but at this point scenario, we're not going to use heparin. And we put on warfarin, we'll do that later. And that's it. So, you put on warfarin to, get their clots and get their blood clotting mechanism in check, especially warfarin is also used for heart problems, as we said before. Remember that as a prophylactic measure, prophylaxis. But let's say we have a patient, we couldn't predict this for some reason. Perhaps it was a long flight patient, and she was a patient on a long flight who was using contraceptives. Oh, you know what? Let's make it more tricky. Well, not tricky, but she was a pregnant patient who was taking a flight. A long flight. She was going to Japan from Europe. I think it's a 24-hour flight. It's a long flight. And she decided not to do calf exercises, not getting blood flowing. She not going to walk too much. And how did a pregnant patient won't go to the toilet a lot? So I don't know if that's a pregnant patient. Because in pregnancy, you have a situation where you have hypercoagulation of the factors being increased, having production increased. But also you have a bit of pressure because the uterus, right, is pressing on the vessels. So it's a nice example for those, but let's keep it more simple. You're a patient, normal guy, right, or woman, long flight, 24-hour flight. Now you're in Japan, and all of a sudden you get this, what happened? You're going to get you in the ER, and the history is like on flight, so stasis, immobility, immobile for a long flight, and perhaps he had some inflammation over time, and this was here, or if it was a woman who was using contraceptives, and now we got multifactorial picture, and this could be causative for first this bad boy forming, and eventually embolizing a little clot, which went to your lungs, and it went to your lungs, and you're dyspnea, right? You got a VQ mismatch. You are at a point where you gotta save this patient, but you don't know how. You gotta get that clot out. How do you do that? Well, tissue plasminogen, but even then, at this point, I wouldn't go with that. I would just probably, if there's possibility, you can get a catheter and do a thrombectomy, which would be just removing the clot. But there's guidelines for that, so you guys can look them up. You can do a thrombectomy. You can use TPA. I think it was a amount of 0.92 mg per. I forgot the amounts. I didn't forget. I just have to review them for my exam. That's coming up. Numbers. All right. Anyhow, so yeah, and then you can get for that. You can do chest X-ray, of course, but it's not really going to be a CT angiogram, but D-dimer is what you want usually. Not usually. D-dimer can also not be too specific, but what was D-dimer? So a D-dimer assay, D-dimer checks. It's the left. So when your body with the activating plasminogen plasmin, the TPA, it tries to break off the clot. And the leftovers, the residue products, are D-dimers, which for the D-dimer assay, you're going to see very elevated. All right, so D-dimer assay, scintigraphy for the angiography for the Q, CT angiogram, you can do an X-ray or a CT to also see if it's a saddle one, but by then, the patient's probably gone. But you're blocking here, you're dead, right away. Just mild dyspnea, you can check it, and if it's just a little bit, then you can still, plasma it out. And yeah. Yep. Okay. Warfarin, microcoagulation, DVTs, acute chest pain, dyspnea, can't breathe. So you're going to come and say, how? You're going to be breathing harder, you're going to have labored breathing because there's less oxygen going to your lungs. What does that mean? You want to bring more oxygen so you breathe more. Now you have respiratory alkalosis because too much oxygen will cause a respiratory alkalosis, right? So you can also do an ABG. That would be helpful. But you see it. And it's an emergency, you don't have time for that stuff. You just want to save the patient. But yeah, you can also do that. There's so much in my head, I'm too tired to bring it up here, but get the gist of it, I guess. On second thought, let's do an example here. Going back to something I said before. The clot breaks up here and it goes up, right? So it goes up. And we said it goes all the way to your lungs. Could you have a PE, a pulmonary embolism, causing a stroke? Yes, you can. There you can have a situation. How? Got me? Look at that. We're back to the old septal defect. Instead of going to your lungs, it will just, shoot, go straight to the left side, and from the left side, for the aorta, shoot, all the way to your brain. And then you have a stroke. Here's your good old ischemic, not good old, I don't, your ischemic penumbra. Let's be serious. Your ischemic penumbra, and yeah. And that's a whole set of other stuff. Focal deficits, depending on which side it's taking on. What happens if you have a left side and you're going to right side symptoms, of course, because that's how the brain works. So left side is stroke, you're going to have right side paraplegia, faces. It's a whole different set of symptomatology. So yeah, so okay. That's cool. Hypercoagulopathy, man. So we said we can have a hypercoagulative state if you take contraceptives, but what if there's other factors, right? So you can have low anti-thrombin, right? And that's genetic, for example, right? And if you have low antithrombin, right, then you can't really break this down as much. But with that, yeah, it causes it for hypercoagulation. We can have factor V lead-in, but that's a different story. Where am I trying to get at this though? I'm trying to get at the coagulation cascade, boys, because this hypercoagulative part is a point of focus of hematology, for example, and also pneumology. Cascade. So, very simple. I want to try to make it as simple as I can. We have a cascade, right? So, little damage here, right? It's your vessel, right? What happens when you get damage? Tissue factor gets released, right? That's the start of your extrinsic, right? Extrinsic pathway. And from your platelets, we also have a pathway called the intrinsic, right? Intrinsic pathway. And pretty much, if you want to envision it, it's like one factor causes another factor to be spliced, like this, right? Activated, right? And then it's like a cascade. That's why they call it a cascade. You know, it's factors. This is how it looks plainly, let's say. But if you want to envision it numerically, as the professor probably does, then that same thing, that one was factor 12, which becomes 12A, right? And then this would cause the activation of, factor 11 to activate factor, activation of factor 11, right? And then we are going to see factor 9, right? Yeah, surprise, you skipped the 10. Why you skipped the 10? Because 10 is a co-pathway. Oh yeah, I did it, baby. All right, so that's a cofactor. It's a co-existing pathway. So we get factor 10 and 10A, right? And there's all kinds of bad boys here. Factor 8, I forgot about it. Factor 8, right? Here we got some of that good old factor 7. Right? This becomes active. And they all converge into this, right? And then you have a complex of 10 plus factor 5. Again, I'm being really simplistic, guys, so check your textbook for, I'm just trying to get the gist out. And this chalk is tiny now, so I'm gonna need a bigger one, which I don't have anymore. Oh man, we're running out of chalk. Okay, so I guess it's almost over, guys. Show is almost over, so last few bits. And then, we have this whole cascade. But this is all part of secondary hemostasis, right? Because in primary hemostasis, we have so in primary hemostasis, we have vasoconstriction because now the nitrogen oxide is being removed. It usually maintains this dilation. So, no NO. Instead, we have high and God, it's so small. Wait, maybe. It's a little bigger. It's a little bigger. Okay. and discussing. Because why? Because there's damage, right? We have damage. And there's a primary hemostasis, and the primary reaction is that we have where the lesion is, right? We have von Willebrand factor, and we have receptors such as IgP, right? Can't even pronounce it. And this attracts platelets, so we have adhesion of platelets, and then once those platelets, here, so we got constriction. Once the platelets adhere, we want to accumulate more platelets, so then we have a situation where there is exposition of the receptors, the 2B, 3GP, yeah, 2B, 3GP, A, right? And actually, you can use a drug called absciximab, which goes against this. But why am I writing? That's what problems. Forget about it, guys. It's pharmacology nerd. Okay, so you have this situation right here, and it attracts more platelets, and now you got a whole primary hemostatic function. And the secondary hemostasis, so this whole pathway, right? So this is part of secondary hemostasis, part 2, right? Part 2. So this was part 1. Vasoconstriction, platelets aggregating, accumulating, aggregating, becoming, attracting more platelets. So von Willebrand factor and ADP, thromboxane, all these factors working in to cause this. And eventually, you can start out a clot, but this comes in play. So the secondary hemostatic, so we got the primary hemostasis making the clot, but we got a solidified clot, make sure it doesn't disappear and cause embolism. So, boom. This whole thing that we did before was to cause thrombin, right, to be made. So prothrombin, which is factor 2, prothrombin becomes thrombin A. And this in turn is causative for fibrin, so factor 1, to become factor 1A. Perfect. All right. So this comes, the fibrin comes here and makes a fibrin mesh, and it solidifies with the product we had in the primary hemostasis, in the secondary hemostasis. My blood sugar is going low, guys. Less than 40. What does that mean? Hypoglycemic crisis. All right. So, all right. So that's the whole thing. And we can have some genetic diseases which might mess all this up. I got a little bit of chalk left, so I'm trying to stretch as much as possible for. The lesson ends when the chalk ends, guys. The lesson ends when the chalk ends. That's it. It's not even duration, man. It's just this. It's all his fault. If I had more chalk, if I had more resources, I could do this all day. 24 hours, no food. I don't care. I'm joking, I would die. All right. So, yeah, like you have hemophilia, for example. That's, if chromosome, back to genetics, guys, back to genetics. Chromosome 8, what would that do? Well, it would remove your factor 8. Chromosome 9, well, factor 9. Yeah. So hemophilia A, hemophilia B, 2 types, right? And genetically speaking, it's X-linked recessive, so X-linked recessive. So women carriers, the boys, they're going to be symptomatic. They're going to actually have it. And one famous case was the Tsar dynasty. The last Tsar, his son, had hemophilia, and the Rasputin was curing him and doing a lot of other interesting things in that court. Oh yeah, that's a nugget right there to tell your professor about. He probably knows, everybody knows, that story's famous. Anyway, so the last Tsar dynasty, their son, their pretty boy, I think the only son of the king, Tsar Nicholas III, I believe. The third? Yeah, I think so. Sorry for my bad history, but he, the last of the great Russian dynasty, his son had hemophilia. And Rasputin, I don't know how, I really have no idea, he yeah, was healing this kid with magic apparently, with voodoo. I don't know how. Nobody knows. Nobody knows even how Rasputin survived so many death attempts. It's very interesting. You guys should look up his story. Very, very interesting set of tales. I mean, we can't really verify, can't really confirm their truthfulness, but that's not our job, is it now? This is our job. All right. So hemophilia type A, type B, factor 8, factor 9 affected. There's also some that affect factor 12, although usually they're not that symptomatic, right? So less SX or symptoms, or fully asymptomatic, it depends. Hemophilia B is also called Christmas disease, not because it's all red and bleeding everywhere and jolly. No, guys, that's not funny. Christmas disease because the guy who actually managed to discover this disease his last name was Christmas, or her last name. Okay, I forgot. I mean, I never looked it up. The professor told me. So don't if you're in there, start that up. 2020, guys. 2020. January of 2020. We're better at this. Or are we? Okay, you can see I'm getting tired. I just need to defocus. Okay, the chalk is almost finished. That chalk is done. I have to prove it to you guys. I can't even find it anymore. Okay. Like, can you really write with this? Like, look, it's minuscule. Minuscule. Small. This one is almost there. Alright. So, yeah. And von Willebrand disease is another one. If you don't have von Willebrand, you can't really do the aggregation of platelets correctly. So you don't have to. So, you gotta get fresh coagulation factors, plasma, changes in that. Giving them extrinsically, you can give replacement factors. Actually, when it comes to hemophilia, you don't have to you don't have to replace factors, they're not too expensive. For type A especially, you can use desmopressin, which would increase the von Willebrand amount, and therefore it would be causative for quick, cheap results comparatively to always getting plasma and clotting factors. So you can use desmopressin. Desmopressin is a good way to treat hemophilia. And you can check the PTs, the APTTs, bleeding times, how much are they elongated for? It's going to be elongated because you're bleeding more, you're not clotting it. It's, the thing is, with hemophilia, you get one cut, no blood, the blood just bleeding everywhere, one little cut, one little cut. So it's like, it's crazy. Yeah, okay. Oh, my God. Oh. Stretch out. All right, I'm getting tired. I'm running out of topics because I'm running out of blood sugar. Yeah, whatever. Maybe losing ketosis even. No, I can't. I can't at least. I'm just tired. But somebody's gotta do it, right? Somebody's gotta use up the chalk. I mean, somebody's gonna be holistic about this medicine, anything, really. Any subject, you just wanna make sure you are keeping this insane amount of topics on your head, and the only way to not forget them is to make connections between everything. It's like if you imagine a tree and the roots, the little branches, they all connect to that main tree, Always start with the basic foundational things from the core, and then spread, and then draw back and continue. In your head, of course, you do that. Yep. So we were talking about blood, actually. So let's talk about blood again, but not coagulated factors. Let's talk about another cascade. Okay. I got a good one. The last one, because the chalk is running out. So, stem cells, right? Not the ones from our GI cancer example, but rather multipotent lineage, you know where I'm going with this, right? So, multi-P, baby. Multipotent. It's not gonna dot. There you go. Multipotent. We have two lineages, right? And of course, we're talking bone marrow, guys. So this is all happening within bone marrow, right? There you go. And within the bone marrow, we got a stretch out. We got a myeloid, and lymphoid. Okay, myeloid and lymphoid. Lymphoid. What? Lots. Okay, there you go. There you go. One. All right, so we got the myeloid and lymphoid lineages. What do they mean? Very basic, guys. I'm not going to dwell. All you gotta know is that you have two types of these. Two divisions of these, right? Dropped it again. Okay. All right. So myeloid lineage, right? We can have the production, right, of what amounts to erythroblasts, right? So RBCs in the beginning are blasts. Everything is blast. So you know what? I'm just gonna just to make it more efficient. Here how our thing is gonna look like. We got the blasts. Okay. The middle guys. And the mature. Immature sites, right? So we start with erythroblasts. Erythroblasts, right? Eventually they have this whole middle thing, they got the normal sites, reticulocytes, and then eventually reticulocytes, they have still a nucleus, right? Then they become, from reticulocytes, they become erythrocytes. So RBCs, and RBCs have no nucleus, guys. So if you ever see an RBC with a nucleus, it means it's immature, it means it's actually a reticulocyte or something before a normal cyte, and then the pathology involved. And that's odd. Are you going to see them in blood work? Not really. Yeah, you could, but it's really if you do a bone marrow aspirate. If you do an aspiration of the bone marrow, usually it's done around this area, right here, and you can see pelvic area, right? You just do an aspirate. You first gotta sanitize and get the core needle. Anyways, so when you get an aspirate of this, you get these bad boys, the blasts in the middle, like the problasts and the pro whatever, and all that stuff. For the sites, just in the CBC, guys, complete blood count, you're good to go. You're gonna find your erythrocytes, RBCs, right? You're gonna find the megacardioblast, which becomes megacardiocyte. So here it's promegacardioblast, promegacardiocyte, and then pro something, the middle, careful with the middle, keep it simple. You can research in your hairs and look later if you want. And then you get the megacardiocytes, which really just break off into little pieces of the megacardiocyte, and these little pieces are called platelets. And yeah, platelets, and they are anucleated also. They are like little pieces of a cell. They're like little bits, being spawned off. And then you got like monoblast, right? Really? It's chalk and it's killing me. There you go, it's better. Okay. it's so small, this job, man. It's dying. It's saying goodbye. Let it go. Let it go. What if I become my sweetest friend? Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I could let you down. I could make you hurt. If I could start again, a million miles away, I could face myself. I could stop the pain. Is that how it goes? I don't remember if that's how it goes, but okay. Basophil, eosinophils, neutrophils, these are also, they spawn from one, right? I'm really finishing my chalk, so I want to finish this. Sorry guys, I know we were having fun, at least I was having fun. Maybe you weren't, I was. Lymphoid lineage, what do you got? You got the, let's just keep it simple with two of them. So you got the T, lymphoblasts, and the B ones, right? And eventually, they become naive T and B cells, which then, this goes in the thymus, this goes in the secondary lymph nodes, the spleen, the liver, the malt, all those, of course, the lymph nodes, to mature and do their job. Yeah, so myeloid and lymphoid lasts, middle, and mature. So why do we care about this, and why am I being so simplistic about it? Because we're trying to find out about hematological cancers, right? Hematology and oncology, they kiss each other and this happens, right? So, this is les Français kiss for the merveilleux putting of the century, mon ami. So we have the blasts. I don't know why I'm doing the French accent. Hey, let's throw in an Italian accent, huh? Now forget about it, eh? No, that's more New York. Okay, everybody, so we got the blast, and we've got the sides, and it's very good, because no. Spanish. Hey, ¿qué pasa? Okay. Only we got the... That's more Latino, no? Hey, we got the... No, what's up? I'm not even gonna, because that's gonna start some stuff. I want to be flagged for that, actually, right? I'm too old for these sensitivities. I don't understand. Guys, I wasn't trying to hurt everybody. I just got a lot of friends from different countries, and we all have fun together and make accents. So don't flag me for this, please, bro. Don't tase me. All right. So we got blasts. So usually acute leukemias, right? So here, right here. Immature cells, immature blasts are usually, you can have an acute and here I'm just gonna because it's the middle, man, it's not really the sites, but it's in the middle, you got the chronic, right? Pathology. So, for example, if you have, let's say, a myelogenous lineage involvement, then this, if it's acute, so a myeloid, an acute, what would that be? It would be myeloid, acute myeloid, so acute myeloid leukemia, AML, right? If it's chronic, so myeloid lineage, and it's a chronic, it would equal a chronic. So C, oh, my chalk, it's dying right before my eyes. Okay, I did that type of thing. Oh man, I'm going crazy here, I'm really tired. Probably said it 30 times. I hope anybody in the comments is keeping count, if there's anybody in the comments, because I said tired, I said the word tired a boatload of times. Like, Not even kidding. So, right, so let's get this. So myeloid, acute AML, right? Easy. Myeloid, if it's chronic, so CML, and if we have a lymphoid lineage, if it goes to the blast, right, it's going to be acute. So, acute lymphoid lineage leukemia, ALL, right? And if it's middle, then, right, it's chronic, so chronic lymphoid leukemia, CLL. So now you get less confused maybe. When you have this blueprint in your mind, then you can fill in the details. Always go holistically, go to general, and then slowly go macro, then micro. Go big, then small. Not the other way around, like our education system thinks is good for us. Or maybe it is, I can't really, I'm not a professor, I can't. They know what they're doing, I'm just a student. So this is how I do it, this works for me. Might work for you differently. Can't really, impose myself. Don't have the right to. So, ALL, CLL, but why do we call them acute? So, in this acute stage, it takes weeks. You get this, and you're gonna get symptoms in weeks or months, right? Or months. In a chronic, it will take months, or maybe years, right? So, and all these blasts, right? The acute, for example, what's going to happen is they're going to crowd out what's happening in the bone marrow, right? So imagine you have all these normal cells, right, being made. So the erythroblasts, you're making erythrocytes, you're making RBC, you're making leukocytes, you're making platelets, all that good stuff. But now you've got an acute or a chronic blood cancer, and you have a lot of these blasts, right? A lot of these bees. And there's so many of them, which at the beginning they might become asymptomatic, but eventually over time, it's going to be causative for crowding out, taking all the space, so there's less space. And it's just like economies, man, just like countries. There's less space, there's overpopulation of people, but in this case, overpopulation of these cells, right? Just make the connections. Even metaphorically, it helps. Too many people, so too many of these cells, these new blast cells, they went inside out of nowhere. What the hell? They're spreading like cancer, they are cancer. They're spreading, and oh no, I get a political undertone. God damn it. No, guys, I don't understand politics. I was just trying to pick an example. Maybe you guys don't even care I'm just overthinking this, so forget what I just said. Anyways, too many cells are crowding out, they're getting the resources from the original cells that are the ones that have to be made, but these immature blasts, they become, when you have more than 20% of these, so out of every 100 now there's 20 of these blast cells, well it's more than that, but out of every 100 if you get the percentage points, you get more than 20% of these blasts crowding out, so they're getting the resources from the good cells, they're getting the space from the good cells, and these guys get squeezed out. They get squeezed out and they can't do anything. And all these irregulars, they're just expanding throughout the whole bone, and eventually they're going to break off the bone, they're going to lyse it. Then you're going to get bone pain, and you're going to miss, you're going to have metastasis and all that stuff. And actually, in old people, in elderly people, you get a milder way. I mean, these are all really big things, right? But in elderly people, it's the same situation with multiple myeloma. It starts out as a pre-multiple myeloma. And now I'm switching topics, guys. Sorry if I'm because my talk is finishing, so I gotta get one more topic out of my chest. Multiple myeloma is the same with a crowd out, but instead of cells like these blasts, like these like a monoblast or a T lymphoblast being more than 20%, they're crowding out and taking away resources from the cells we need, and being useless and just killing us. Instead of blasts from these two lineages, the problem is at the B cell level, specifically with what the B cells produce with multiple myeloma. What do B cells produce? Right? I mean, what do they become? They can make plasma cells, and plasma cells make, come on guys, antibodies, right? So, paraproteins, right? Especially with multiple myeloma, IgAs, oh god, no, my chalk. Come on, push through it just a little bit more. IgAs, IgGs. And what if you had IgMs? That is Waldenstrom microglobulinaria. So IgM would be Swedish, because Waldenstrom was Swedish. professor. But we don't care about that. We care about IgA, IgG, because we're talking about multiple myeloma. This is not, IgM will not be seen in multiple myeloma. IgA, IgGs will be seen in multiple myeloma. But before multiple myeloma, we said, so we get a pre-multiple, oh no, I'm using my finger now, that's how small it's going, which is also called MVIS, which literally, the acronym means monoclonal gammopathy of undefined significance. Undefined or unidentified. Anyways, why? Pre-multiple myeloma is called MGUS because we have, here in these cancers, before we said we have more than 20% blasts, right? And actually that's a good difference. If you have more than 20% blasts, so immature cells, it's either chronic or acute leukemia. If you have between, I think, more than 3% but less than 20%, it becomes just dysplastic. And if you have less than 3%, 2 to 3% is normal. That's how much blast you should have as a normal person in the bone marrow. But these are the leukemias. Here we're talking something different. We're talking about paraprotein, too much paraproteins, too much plasma ion production, too much antibody, too much IgAs and IgGs. Pre-multiple myeloma, called MOS. It's monoclonal because, monoclonal, why? Because we have one single cell. And from this, it's mono. We got cloning of this cell, right? And then these boys decide to clone. And they just invade, right? So that's what they want to clone. Gammopathy, I said it here. Got all these gammas, paraproteins, IgAs, plasma cells in the human, all these, yeah. And my hands. God, I'm tired. Okay. Say it again. Jeez. You guys gotta take shots. No, don't take shots. Don't take shots, bro. That's bad advice. We're medical guys. Yeah, my professors would kill me. So never, guys. Only during Christmas or festival. Not really. I can't remember the last time we drank actually. Festive events. Very few times. Never smoke. And only drink at a Christmas party with your family. Don't binge, guys. Don't binge drink. It's not cool. You think it's cool, but in the short term, it might give you pleasure. In the long term, it's going to mess you up. Always think long term. Think like a chess player. I'm not good at chess, but think like a chess player. All right. So we said this is for the gammopathy. The undefined significance is because we don't know why this happens. I mean, you can do electrophoresis, and on electrophoresis, your MGUS, if usually you have a situation where the protein, the albumin, is higher, and you got alpha 1, alpha 2, all that stuff. But then the gamma, right, and that's where the gammopathy comes. Gamma protein is supposed to be low, right? But in MGUS, it's actually shooting up. It's shooting up higher than even the albumin. You have too much of this in the electrophoresis. So now, this old one, it's cleared out. Boom, and you got too much of that. Even more than this bad boy, right? So that's the gammopathy. Undefined significance, the etiology is undefined. We just know, at least in America, that about 5%, so 5 in 100 people, right? 5% of the population over a certain age, I think it was over the age of 60, if I'm correct, gets MGUS, and of that 5%, right, only 1 out of 5 around the age of 80 will develop into multiple myeloma proper, right? And let's think about it this way. If you have all these cells crowding up, if you look at a CBC, a complete block, and before even doing the bone marrow aspiration to see the blasts, right? Before even jumping to the aspirate, because you do the aspirate to see how many blasts you have, but before that, what's the clinical case? You're going to have an old person, now we're switching to multiple myeloma, which is the advanced version, right? It's where you have symptoms, because MGUS, you have no symptoms. MGUS has no symptoms, because it's pre-multiple myeloma. multiple myelomas, okay, let's actually draw it out. So multiple myeloma has symptoms. MGUS does not have symptoms, right? When you have symptoms, you have multiple myeloma. It's an old lady, and there's all these cells, right? And they're crowding out, and eventually they want to escape, right? And because lysis, right? Bone lysis, everywhere, all the bones, right? Not only your femur, it could also be in your cranium. But it usually, when it comes to multiple myeloma, it's going to be an old lady. Usually it affects the back, so they're going to have lumbar pain, right? Because their bone is getting destroyed. There's all this crowding out, so other cells cannot be produced or function. So you're going to have, in a CPC, you're going to have, oh no, my last chalk. It's become so small. It's not usable. At least this one still has a little fire in it. I gotta finish this, guys. And this one is, you can't use it. It's like that. Alright. So, if you have less RBCs. Why? Because there's too many blasts. Actually, there's too many, paraproteins. There's a difference. In here, it was more than 20% for the leukemias. For MGUS and for multiple myeloma, it's more than 10% paraproteins comparatively, right? And about 75% would be IgEs, IgAs, and whatnot, or just plasma cells. But that's off topic. I mean, not really off topic, it doesn't matter. Who cares about numbers? We care about people, guys, not numbers. We care about understanding how to help people. Numbers are just going to be there. Maybe 20 years ago numbers mattered. Now we have Google. You take out your cell phone and look at the numbers and double check them. They don't understand matter. So what happens logically? If you have too much crowding in, that means the other cells, these lineages, are not going to be able to be produced as much. So you're going to have less of this erythroblasts becoming reticulocytes, becoming RBCs. So your blood work, your CBC, you're going to see less red blood cells. You're going to see less platelets, right? And you're going to have less white blood cells, right? Less leukocytes, and overall less of these, less neutrophils, less eosinophils, less basophils, less T and B lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are just a type of leukocyte, guys. Don't get those mixed up. So, anyways, this isn't a complete blood count, but do we need a complete blood count? Yes, but even before that, we can see if a patient we said has bone pain, right, lytic bone lesions, so that's the lumbar pain usually. Then also ORBC, what does that mean? So you're gonna be pale, you're gonna have pallor, skin pallor, your nails, the capillary refill time is gonna be less, obviously. You're just gonna see blue nails, even cyanosis, perhaps. And fatigue, because there's not enough oxygen, there's not enough blood to bring oxygen so that it can be converted for the energetic pathways to make ATP, and you have less energy, you're just fatigued. It all makes sense. Less RBC, less oxygen, less ATP, more fatigue. Simple. So the patient's going to be fatigued, it's going to be pale, less platelets. So if I just, hit myself, right? I hit myself. Now, if I can't, even this little hit, if there's no platelets, it's going to become a bruise. You're going to have purpura, you're going to have ecchymosis actually for this, purpura so small. You're going to have big ecchymosis, right? So, or if you cut yourself, you're going to bleed out. Not bleed out, but yeah. If you have very, very low, you could. Not like you feel it, it's not going to be that low, but it's eventually going to become that low. Low white blood cells, so the immune system is not working as well. What does that mean? It means that you're going to get infected. You're more prone to infectious diseases. You're going to be sick more often. So this patient's going to have certain amounts of sickness, opportunistic bacteria going in, taking advantage of the low amount of police. It's like a neighborhood. If there's no police, and it was already a troubled neighborhood due to resources being scarce throughout this neighborhood, because there's this new rich guy taking all the resources, and the other guys are fighting for scraps. And only taking care of themselves, then you get another invasion by another party, and they're going to take advantage of this. I like the sociological carryover to these types of thinking. Because really, socioeconomics and medicine, I mean, biological systems go hand in hand. They're all systems, guys. You know, it actually all comes from, if you understand medicine, you can understand many of these social cultural factors if you study both. I think actually doing there are some guys, I knew a really famous doctor, I forgot his name, he's also called, I'm not gonna tell him. But he's doing a major in economics, I think, or a minor in economics, I'm not sure. But he's a doctor, he's studying medicine and also doing business school at night, I think. But they also have economic classes. They go hand in hand. It might not look at it on the surface, but all these are systems, guys. But that would be too complex. I think one day I should probably write it down. There's carryover to everything. It starts biological, and many biological systems make, you know, these infrastructures, which we call economies, which we call buildings, and then houses, and then, in fact, all these things look like our own bodies, because the houses could be just our red blood cells, and the money from the post could be just the oxygen. And you can make many analogies and many metaphors. It's really fascinating. It's art, guys. It's art. Medicine is art. And an imperfect science, which makes it perfectly imperfect. What am I saying? Tired. Yeah. Always excuse me. No excuse, guys. No excuses. Okay. Enough for the nerd fest. So I said too many blasts in multiple myeloma, crowding out, and now we get all these symptomatologies, right? So infectious, easy bleeding, easy bruising, pallor, fatigue, and why lytic bone lesions? We said you're gonna have bone pain, right? Because of that, it hurts. There's nerve endings, right? It's gonna be hurting. But why does that happen? Let's figure that out real quick. Well, the way it works is that we have stromal cells, right? We have stromal cells in our bone marrow, in our bones, and these stromal cells, let's draw them like this, right? They're inside here, anyways. So these plasma cells interact with these stromal cells, and these stromal cells in turn inhibit not so small, I can't even write, osteoblasts, so that osteoblasts, if there's less of them, and they also cause inhibition of the osteoblast progenitors, right? Pros. And if there's less osteoblasts, there's going to be ratio-wise, there's going to be a higher ratio of osteoclasts, which break off the cells, and they cause, you know, more, what's more made of? Calcium, right? So there's going to be more calcium into the bloodstream now, because that's what osteoclasts do. Because you've got DKK1 pathways causing increase of osteoclasts, and decrease of osteoblasts. And the ratio is off, you get more calcium into your blood system. And if you have hypercalcemia, it's problematic. Because what happens when you have too much calcium? So a person that has hypercalcemia secondary to multiple myeloma could have also other symptoms, apart from the fatigue, glycoplatelets, and opportunistic infection. You can also have disorders caused by too much calcium. Because when you have too much calcium, then the cells cannot depolarize as well, because now there's calcium coming in, and it's disrupting sodium channels, right? Just basic chemistry, guys. So if you have calcium and disrupting sodium, the depolarization is going to occur, and so this is going to be causative for many problems. Constipation is one of them if you have hypercalcemia, because there's no depolarization happening in your muscles, right? In your small muscles. So you're going to be constipated. Constipation, right? And your skeletal muscles are going to be more stiff, so you're going to be rigid, right? You're going to be very rigid. And also there's depolarization happening at a neuronal level, so you're going to have mental fatigue, your consciousness might be affected. So consciousness, altered mental states would be more proper, I would say. So it's a change. Mental, right? changed mental state. And this all adds up. So we have a situation of bone-like lesions causing hypercalcemia, and all this calcium, right? Where does it go? I mean, it has to be filtered out somehow. So now you have all this calcium also going and causing. Okay, I gotta figure out some space here. All this calcium. Okay, all this calcium has to be urinated out. So now in these multiple myeloma patients, we can also have cases of renal failure. But it's not really that's mostly for renal stones though. Is it the calcium? No. Renal failure in multiple myeloma is not really due to calcium, but due to these light chains. And they get urinated as Bent-Jones proteins, right? Remember immunology, guys? I was talking immunology, guys. So in about 20 to 30% of cases, 20 to 30% of cases, we can have renal failure, right? Renal failure, because all these light chain proteins, they clog up, in one rural area, and you just can't, So yes, hypercalcemia would be problematic. It would mostly cause renal stones to try to urese it out. And then if you have a very big renal stone, and now let's go back to nephrology, what happens when you have a very big renal stone? Well, then you can have a post-renal problem, right? A post-renal problem which might cause kidney failure. This will be chronic. Once you're acute, it's big enough and soon enough. So think about it this way. So the Bent-Jones proteins, we said renal failure, but also too much calcium, and of course I don't want to get into the details of, there's more than just calcium, it's a multitude of factors, but if you have a renal stone, as you're trying to urese out that calcium, then at a post-renal level, so let me just, oh no, it's the last chunk, where did you go? Just bear with me, man. Bear with me. Okay. So, you have a kidney, okay? You have a kidney and ureter, right? Here's the bladder, okay? So if we have a situation where there's a big, it's not that, a neoplasm would make more sense, I don't know. Anyways, hydronephrosis caused by a renal stone, a really big one, then this would get congested and will look more expanded, more like this. And the urine gets backed up to the kidney, right? So that's a post-renal, right? It's a post-renal problem, which eventually could cause an intra. Renal problematic, right? What would be a pre-renal problem? Let's forget about all these hematological stuff. This is actually fun. We're talking nephrology now, guys. We're switching topics like there's no tomorrow, but that's medicine. Now you gotta think of every topic and switch between them. Okay, so post-renal, intrarenal. Okay. What would be a pre-renal cause? What could be a pre-renal cause? Well, we could have, going back to what we said before, we can have, I can think off the top of my head of these ones. You could have a stenosis, a vessel stenosis, right? Vessel stenosis. You could have congestive heart failure, right? Actually, let's do too tired. And yeah, so it's from the top, right? What's feeding? I mean, it's like this, right? Yeah. Could also be cancer, maybe somewhere you're compressing, right? neoplasm, compressing the vasculature of the vessels, right? And then that, if there's less blood flow, there's less money to work with, and if there's less money to work with, there's less cash can be drawn, right? Maybe you restart what am I saying? Okay. So yeah, that's our boy gladiator. Yeah, it takes a fight out of it when you're always peeing. Bladder is a sham. It's gladiating its way out of, I don't know. I could think of something witty, but I'm tired. That's gonna be the theme of this video, I think. I hope not, but probably by now I just dug my own grave. Alright, so yeah, these are prerenal causes, and again, congestive heart failure, arrhythmias, anything that there's no blood flow. You get the point. Hypertension is a big one, but not for the reasons you guys might think. Because if you have hypertense patients, so let me just bring this back up a bit. Okay. If you have a hypertense patient, over time, so let's say it's the kidney nephron, right? Okay. Glucagon, okay. I always forget the thick ones. Thick, and thick, collecting that. And there's millions of these bad boys, right? So, you get the whole afferent, right? If you are a hypertensive patient, if a normal, right, over time, what was a normal vessel feeding this? Feeding the afferent? Right, this was feeding the afferent, right? Over time, with hypertension, you have narrow tube. It's not as wide as before, so you have more pressure, less blood coming in. And the kidney, it senses this. It's like, well, there's less blood coming in. Really? So what do we do? Well, the kidney, it's like, okay, we gotta maybe increase the blood pressure so that there's more blood coming in because there's lack of blood flowing because there's low pressure. Maybe evolutionary, we didn't have all these fatty foods and all that stuff, or we didn't suffer from hyperglycemia all the time because of all this sugar. So our body's right. It's like, thousands of years of evolution. It's like probably we're bleeding somewhere, or we don't have water. I don't know. There's something that's causing less blood to come to us, so we're going to increase the blood pressure, right? So we talked about it before. Renin-angiotensin bloodstream system, right? Goes to the heart too. Tries, increase the blood pressure, increase sodium gets retained, right? And then in a short, simplistic manner, and more water gets retained. But the problem is, the body thinks it's doing the right thing, but because of these new nutritional, well, it's not only nutrition, hypertension can have a vast array of factors causing it. So anyhow, we have a situation where instead of being better now, there's more hypertension. There's less volume to work with, there's less water coming in, and the kidney thinks, oh my God, okay, there's even less water, so let me try and fix it by increasing the pressure. So it's doubling down on RAS, and it's a vicious circle, and it will not end until you die, or until you do therapy, right? Not curative, but at least try to manage it. Managing is important. But why does the kidney, and why does this lead to chronic kidney failure though? Because over time, this nephron will die, the nephron next to it will die, and as they're dying, the nephron next to it, will be like, it will be hyperfunctioning, it will be compensating for the lack of nephrons, so it will be problematic of hyperfiltration, right? So, if I could visualize it, so there's a nephron, right? We have many nephrons. This will die, so this will work double, right? And it's eventually this will decompensate because there's, as usual, anything in the body will compensate and up to a certain point, then decompensate. And it will happen, and then this will have hyperfiltrate until decompensating, and then this will take over. So and eventually until there's full kidney failure, until the GFR is very low, glomerular filtration rate. So that's the problem, and that's what over time. So it's chronic kidney failure, right? An acute kidney failure would look something like I drawn before, where you have a sudden lack of, thrombosis or clot or a hemorrhage. A hemorrhage is a big, it's not only acute kidney failure, it's full failure. I mean, you're going to hypovolemic shock, right? So many hemorrhagic shock, which is hemorrhagic shock. So so that's hyperfiltration, the kidney fails, but it's, this does not only happen if you do hypertension over time, right? You can also have this area, if you blow it up, you're going to have, I'm not even going to draw anymore because it's too small. My chalk is saying goodbye. You're going to have, you're just going to have meningeal cell atrophy. You're going to have hypersclerosis. I can't even draw anymore. No way, it's too small. Can't. Anyways, the problem is that, so if I can't draw, I'll just do this schematically. Schematic. What happens when you're diabetic, for example? Too much sugar in your blood, right? So that's hyperglycemia, right? And this is going to try, the sugar is going to try and get filtered. Over time, you're going to have, non-reactive oxygen species. That's ROS, but not really. It's just the cytokine-related inflammation that comes with too much sugar. And this is going to cause sclerosis, right? Sclerosis, hyaline sclerosis of glomerular area, and that's also going to lead to chronic kidney disease. That's very simplistic, I'm sorry. I just don't have enough chalk, guys, but you have hypertension, hyperglycemia, which over time, so diabetes, high blood pressure, smoking also, it's all reactive oxygen species, guys, so it's all causative, right? Kidney-wise, if you have hyperglycemia, let's say you're a diabetic guy, and as diabetes goes, you can have type 1 and type 2. We'll stick to type 2 because it's more common. That's 90% of the population, right? And you have, again, hyperglycemia. You got to decrease it out, so you don't understand. But apart from the sclerosis, what plays into sclerosis, they co-play together, or they can act singularly in a way, in pathogenesis, I mean. You have a hyperosmolar, situation where there's too much sugar. Oh my god, that was my last chalk. You gotta pull through chalk. Just we're almost done, and you can go. Well, I could go on forever, man. If I only had some more. If I only had breakfast, guys. I'm a bad example. Medical students are bad examples for health. We do insane amount of bad things to ourselves to serve you, to serve the patient. Then when we become doctors, we have time to actually eat. Not really, actually. So, if we're sick, how do we treat sick people? Well, we can empathize with them because we're sick too, so we can understand them better. Right? Okay, look, I'll tell myself that tonight. All right. So type 2, as I said, so that's insulin resistance, right? Increased insulin resistance, or just decreased insulin sensitivity. Of course, the pathogenesis of type 2 diabetes is still under extensive research. But overall, what happens is your GLUT4 receptors are responsive to the glucose, right? So it's not being shuttled in. And type 2 diabetes, this could cause a scenario where you have too much sugar in your blood, and it's dynamically active in a sense that the sugar that is being decreased out, it attracts water. And so, just if you remember from chemistry, in a hyperosmolar state, hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state, you have too much glucose, and then the cell water will try to follow this glucose, and they'll get uriced out. So you have polyuria, and when you urinate too much, you pee too much, then you're going to be thirsty. So you're going to have polydipsia now, or you're going to drink more when you're diabetic. And because your cells are not getting the sugar because it's not entering the cells, it's just stuck in the bloodstream, you're also going to be hungry because you're not getting no energy. So you're going to have polyphagia, right? These all connect to each other. And the only reason why you get an HHS in type 2 diabetes and in type 1 it's called something else is because here we still have a little bit of insulin. But in type 1 diabetes, which is 10% of cases, and it's genetic, right? I believe it was chromosomes, I don't remember. It has to do with the DQ3 and DQ4. You just don't produce insulin in type 1 diabetes. Type 2, you do have a little bit. I mean, no, you do have it until it decompensates fully, but type 1 from the get-go, you just don't have it. So you need insulin shots, you know? So then you go to a state of ketosis right away. And ketosis is very similar to the HHS state that we talked about, with the exception that in ketosis, using ketones, because there's no insulin. So your liver, you know, will turn those fatty acids into ketone bodies, and then you have all those problematics plus the ketones, and that, you know, lead to DKA, and that's a whole set of problems. And this chalk is not cooperating; it's too small. So the chalk is done, guys. I tried my best. I wish I had more chalk. It's fine. So this is just a fraction of what we have to know, right? Medicine is tough, but I'm not the best teacher. I think this is the first time I ever tried teaching something to nobody, because I'm here in this room by myself. But hopefully you guys are viewing, and I hope I inspired. I don't want to give information because you can find that everywhere in textbooks and you can talk to your professor. I just hope I inspired a mindset, you know. Not even a mindset, a type of approach when dealing with medicine, you know, to correlate all different factors. I want you to correlate cardiology with nephrology, and then hematology with oncology, right? So when you can look at it holistically from a macro level and then fill in the details as you go, but you have the big picture in your head. When you have the big picture, it's easier to navigate. You gotta make associations. And then when you wanna really go crazy, you associate these biological and medical concepts and bring them out to real life, into sociological concepts. And then you can understand your patients better too. You can understand the economy better, maybe, but not really. And I was just joking. It helps to, it's fun to use metaphors and cross-link, but it's a good exercise for cross-linking because carryover is very important. It's not only efficient, but it's what humans do. We make connections, we make carryovers. Think of a tree, think of the branches, think of the roots at the bottom, you know. That's it, guys. Don't memorize facts. Understand how the system works, and then the facts will come. Or you will have, in 10 years' time, you'll have a little floating drone AI thing giving you, being like Cortana from Halo, being like, all right, this is all about the percentage of this, the epidemiology, blah, blah, but you're the one who understands and put the pieces together. That's one way to go about it. Understanding, correlating, mixing concepts, breaking them apart again, converging, diverging. And yeah, I really gotta eat something. Didn't eat anything yet. It's been hours and hours. Just had non-sweetened coffee, just a little bit of water. So technically I'm doing an intermittent fast. So time to break this fast. Thank you very much for your time, guys. I hope you have fun. If you're still here. If you're still here, you're a champ. Or you have nothing better to do. I don't know. I'm just messing. Alright guys. Thank you very much for your time. And as always, grab your stethoscope. I'm coming very, very close. And quiet. Oh, there you go. Oh, would you look at that?